Greetings, fellow Kung Fu fans. We're back with the fourth of Marvel's Netflix series about the most out there of the Defenders lineup. It's the billionaire former monk Danny Rand, aka the Immortal Iron Fist. So without further delay, let's meditate on how let's meditate about the kid with the glowing fist as we look at season 1 and start interpreting Iron Fist. I had a typo in there, Dragon. I'm so sorry. I butchered that. It's doing so well, and then just... You know what, Dragon? I did that intentionally. You know why?
No, you did not. Don't spin it like that.
You know why I did it intentionally, Dragon?
I'm not giving you fodder on this. I'm not.
Because it was a metaphor for the show! It starts out so well, and then, all right. No, in all seriousness, folks, we're here to talk about Iron Fist. Of course, we did Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and the first 2 seasons of Daredevil. We did all the episodes, but time is of the essence, people, and Luke Cage took a lot longer than we anticipated because we split that up into basically like 2 seasons of podcasting about Luke Cage, doing 1 season of that show.
We had such a good time with it.
Oh, we did. We really did. Yeah, especially I really liked what we did with covering the second half of that show because it's not nearly as talked about as the first half. But I digress. By splitting up Luke Cage the way we did, we have not had time to do a full episode-by-episode recap of Iron Fist. And, of course, let's just address the elephant in the room right now. This is the most popular of the Netflix shows. Some would wager to say this is actually basically the equivalent to Cars 2 in the MCU. Like, the thing that kind of ruined the perfect streak.
I wouldn't go that far, but, you know.
I wouldn't go that far either. I think this is good, but I think this is good in the same way that something like Thor: The Dark World is good. You know what I mean? Like,
I think
it's passable. It's fun.
That to me that's a fair comparison. That the Thor two.
Right. Yeah, I had a good time with it, but there's certainly problems with it. It's not perfect.
Also, because we're doing it as kind of one big extravaganza of Iron Fist here, like when we typically do something like a big old season overview like this, we don't really do clips. I don't expect any. Unfortunately, folks don't expect any clips. Because let's be honest, if we did, it would have been all Harold Meacham.
We've had so much fun with Harold. You know what, Dragon? We could have literally done the whole season and just used clips from the one segment of the show where Harold Meacham gets revived and is walking around like a zombie and talking nonsense. We could have just done all that. Just all that as clips.
But don't worry, folks. We're gonna break it up. We're gonna break it all down. Usually one supersized episode, if you will.
Sure. And of course, the goal of this is to not just talk about, we're going to talk about the good. We're going to talk about the bad. We're going to talk about what could have been improved. We're going to talk about the things that the show absolutely nailed on the head. So with that in mind, Dragon, let's get into the plot.
Yes. All right, folks. Here's the buckle in, because again, plotting the whole season here. So I'm going to do as briefly as I can.
I got my popcorn. No, not really, but I've got my metaphorical popcorn.
Okay. So, boy billionaire Danny Rand returns to New York 15 years after the plane crash that killed his parents, and himself being trained by monks. He himself was kind of salvaged in the Arctic cold. It wasn't the mountainy Himalayan cold. He's trained by monks from the mystical and mysterious land of Kunlun. Now, Danny initially tries to rejoin Rand Enterprises, but is met with great skepticism, like no one believes he's the real Danny Rand, by the children of his father's former business associate and partner, Harold Meacham. Harold, we learned that Harold struck a deal. He is not actually dead, as people have claimed that he is. Harold secretly struck a deal with the Hand to come back to life in secret. So he's kind of keeping an eye on things from his secret awesome penthouse. Danny, after befriending martial artist Colleen Wing at her dojo, and finding a family attorney, Jerry Hogarth, publicly returns to the fold at Rand Enterprises and just kind of publicly comes back from the dead, if you will. our other character who came back from the dead, Harold Meacham, he manipulates Danny to get out from under the thumb's hand. You know, the Iron Fist, the weapon, the thing, kind of the thing the hand fears most, is back, and he's going to use that to his advantage against the hand, namely Madame Gao, who we know from Daredevil. So, along with Claire, because who doesn't like Claire Temple? Along with Claire, Danny and Colleen track Gao to China as the season goes on to get answers about the murder. What we discover is the murder of the Rands. It wasn't exactly just your average, ordinary plane crash. It wasn't like the Amazing Spider-Man 2. There was a sinister plane crash about. Well, that one was actually a conspiracy too. So yeah, either or.
It's less complicated than the Amazing Spider-Man 2, and more necessary than the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
So Spider-Man was supposed to get powers the whole time. Anyway, so after the murder of they're going to China to interrogate Madame Gao. Now, after they capture Madame Gao, she plays mind games once she's captured. Ward, meanwhile, is grappling with not only a drug problem, but a psychosis after he kills Harold Meacham for the second time.
Okay, this is the part of the recap where it's just like, if you haven't kept up so far, you're just going to be like, wait, what? Oh boy! Seriously, I'm curious to see how you word the rest of this, Dragon. Go ahead. Let
me preface it with this. Part of me wonders, getting back to the Gotham days, of me wondering if I didn't want to spoil anything for Tiki when he was watching through the series.
Right.
It occurred to me today, working this up. If I were to explain to Tiki what happened, he'd never believe me in a million years.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't. You're right.
Okay, anyway, so Ward is grappling with drug problems, psychosis after killing his father for the second time. Danny deals with a complicated faction of the Hand, led by Bakuto, a member of the Hand who is very interesting. Danny's former guard buddy Davos returns from Kunlun and eventually turns into a bad guy that we're going to be definitely building for season 2. Mm-hmm. Danny learns Harold caused the crash. Big surprise there. I'll get into that rant later. He learns that Harold caused the crash, which leads to a big showdown at Rand. Danny decides in the end to return to Kunlun before the gate closes for the next 15 years, but he finds that he's too late.
Well, I'll be damned, Dragon. I'll admit, you got through that and you made it sound flat out sensible. Words. Okay, so with that in mind, let's get to character meditations. And also, folks, just to, we're going to kind of break up the characters in terms of...
a few groups here.
Yeah, a few groups. We have the Meachams as their own group. We have the Hand as their own group. And we're going to cover most of the rest here, so...
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. I've been trying to be nice.
So we're going to start with America's golden child, Danny Rand.
Everything about the show I like, okay? Except for this guy. Like, the backstory is interesting. You could have made a compelling character out of this. Dragon, this guy is so whiny. I mean, I just want to address the elephant in the room when it comes to the acting. Say what you will about this particular thing breaking the Marvel perfect track record. I think it's pretty inarguable that Finn Jones breaks the perfect track record of, like, the main heroes of Marvel properties being just impeccably cast. You know what I mean? There's some major problems with them.
Well, look, let me kind of defend him, but address your. I understand your criticism. Let me throw this out there. I think it boils into this. I think Finn Jones is well cast as Danny Rand, but in the acting, he's working with one problem. That's what causes a flaw in his character, which we'll break down a little bit more later on. But let's just say the fact that he doesn't quite know his motivation. That's the issue. His motivation in the writing isn't quite there, and he's just working. I think
what the writing was trying to do with this character was to basically be like, hey, let's have a superhero who is essentially bad at his job, which is where, as we'll talk about later, that's where Davos kind of comes into play. Let's have a superhero where he's straight up, like, the whole point of Danny Rand's character arc this season is he's bad at being the Iron Fist. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like he's really
that's
struggling.
A hard thing to pull off. First of all, it's a challenging thing to pull off. It's not impossible, but it's challenging.
In more capable hands, it would have been really interesting, I think.
Yes.
But instead, it's just, as you said, I just think the problem with the Danny character is that for me, he's such a flip-flopper when it comes to his morals and when it comes to its code. It's like, he's comfortable, like there's always, like, it's kind of like the Daredevil thing with the question of murdering people or not, except I think with this, it's just a little more sloppily written, where it's like he'll just, like, he's got this rage thing that I don't really think it's properly built upon, really. Like, it's an interesting idea, but there's no real payoff for it by the end of the season. I don't know. It just is. I don't even know where to start with this guy. It's just very, very scattered.
Here's what I like about Danny. And again, we have like a genesis of a good character here. But again, the underlying kryptonite of this performance is the fact, again, he hasn't quite. Iron Fist is being, Danny is being played as a character who. He basically, it boils down to this. He doesn't know why he left Kunlun. That's a problem. He needs to know why he left Kunlun.
Oh, that's.
See, I'm saying that's what's causing the fracture in the character. That singular motivation problem. That's what kind of. That's kind of what he's playing.
You think that'd be a pretty essential element of this particular character to get down, and that's where the main problem with the show. It's like this guy is like the foundation for the whole show, and without a good motivation for like literally the event that kicks off the whole series, the foundation falls apart, and it doesn't matter how good the rest of the supporting cast is. It's like, it's a critical problem.
It's almost as if, and again, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's put a pin in like kind of the where Danny's flaws come.
Okay, can I just say one thing though? I actually kind of enjoy the homeless, like, fish out of water version of Danny that we get in the first few episodes. That was like my favorite version of Danny. To me, where Danny kind of started to falter as a character, we might have some differing opinions on this. Let me just say, I really like Colleen, but I don't think that her and Danny have great chemistry, really. I think the love story in this is pretty forced. I mean, I understand why they're getting together. I don't know. It's not nearly as good as Luke and Claire, or even, I've criticized Karen and Matt, but even Karen and Matt was.
But I thought you still liked Karen and Matt by the end.
By the end, yes. I've just said, like, there were a couple episodes here and there where I had issues with them, but this, I think, is probably the weakest of the love stories I don't know. And like I said, I get it. Like, on paper, it makes a lot of sense for Colleen and Danny to get together. But it's just the chemistry, especially, like I said, I'm sorry, Dragon. Finn Jones, he doesn't sell me with the romantic stuff either. But the thing that really kind of, that really took me down the wrong path with this character was sort of the later episodes. It was really the later episodes where he was just becoming the guy that I was the least invested in. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny, Dragon. Like, I've heard so much criticism about this show for including way too much screen time on the Meachums, but by the end of the series, I was like way wrapped up in what was going on with the Meachums, and I honestly couldn't really care about what was going on with Danny all that much. It's funny, it kind of just like warped itself around like that, It's like, I'll admit the Meachums weren't the most compelling presence in the first couple episodes, but and we'll get. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves with that, but
Yeah, we'll break down where things kind of go off the rails. I want to focus on some good qualities.
Do you agree that the first half of the season is, I think post Madame Gao, Madame Gao was kind of where Danny kind of falls off for me.
I'm with you on that one. That's where I find most full Danny, because it's basically the revenge motive onward. That's where,
exactly,
again, that's kind of going
and that's where he becomes very basic. Yeah. That's where he becomes very whiny, very self-centered, and it's just almost kind of like. I get that they're trying to show off, like, oh, he has a darker side, but he was just, again, he was so much more likable in those first 6 episodes, especially. So,
speaking of that likability, that's the thing I want to get into a little bit here. So with Danny said, again, I like that thing. That's the thing I really like with Finn Jones. He struck me as, like, right in the beginning, very much like an Iron Fist. Iron Fist is known to be, again, logically be very compatible with Luke Cage because he's a very zen, likable guy. And what we're going to experience with Defenders most likely is like they're going kind of like an old man, young man sort of thing, where basically he's like a young, hopeful version versus kind of the experienced zen guy that we get with Luke Cage.
I will admit, for as many problems as I have with Finn Jones' performance, I'm still just stoked to see him and Luke Cage interact. Like, that excitement is not wavered for me at all. So I just want to put that out there.
And with that, I mean, I like the naivete that he comes back with, in the homeless kind of, the homeless hipster thing that Jerry Hogarth calls him. The homeless.
Well, which is exactly what he is, man. I mean, he's kind of like a less charismatic TJ Miller, just in look. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I like this idea of this innocent returning humbly. His childhood was robbed from him, with the monks, and he's kind of still kind of in childhood when he comes back to New York, 15 years later, and with that kind of that youthfulness in the performance, and that's not bad. And he grew up, and the idea he grew up into a nice yet spoiled kid. And again, I'm focused on the first half here before the revenge stuff here. And based on that, like he is a nice guy and he is very naive, and we addressed that in the fact that he was spoiled as a kid, but he didn't grow up to be a rotten kid. He just grew up to not knowing how the world works, which, again, you understand being kind of given everything you want growing up. His parents were nice people.
Sure.
From what we've seen, and again, here are like the ideas that we have kind of put forward here. I think the coolest idea that we could have expanded upon that I think is there, and especially on the rewatch, I know is there, but it's just, we're not doing enough with, and again, we kind of go off the rails towards the end, losing sight of this, is that the idea, and this is I think where the motivation should have continued to come from. It's like we have a hint of it coming from here, is that Iron Fist should be grappling with the identity issue. Am I Danny Rand or am I the Iron Fist? And that's there, and we have this term of like, there was a moment in the series where it's, you're wearing they bring up wearing a mask. You're not going to wear a mask? No, because again, he's embracing the Danny Rand side of himself versus kind of the what we know down the line will be the masked guard that is Iron Fist.
Right.
And that's that's the stuff I really wanted to see more of, and I just wish we kind of had that nailed down in the very beginning versus just kind of here and there sporadically, and just kind of like we're sprinkling it along when we should have had like a.
Which was I think that's that's a big criticism of the show that is pretty. Like you can't really argue against it. There should have been way more Kunlun centric stuff in this series. Like there should have at least been one major flashback episode. You know what I mean? In the same vein as the Seagate episode from Luke Cage. I mean, it boggles my mind that they didn't do that, especially because we have a character who I really like in Davos, who comes in, but he comes in too late. You know what I mean? Like, It's almost like too little too late with the Kunlun stuff. Like, he's really good when he's there, and I like his dynamic with Danny, but I just wish we would have gotten more of that. And even just having an episode earlier in the season before he makes his appearance, that's kind of centered on Danny and Davos and their friendship in Kunlun and the rivalry with that would have, you know what I mean? That would have solved so many problems just from a narrative point of view with Danny. It would have put his motivations into perspective. It would have made Davos a much more meaningful character, even though he is a good presence in the show. I don't know. Just I cannot understand. Like, of all the shows where you need a flashback episode, I would think Iron Fist would be the obvious one.
Well, I'm going to get into this here. Bear in mind, the stuff I'm about to bring up with Danny here is mostly an interpretation. It's not there. It's not enough there in the show, but this is my interpretation of what the show's getting at with Iron Fist. And I like this take. Again, I like this direction. This kind of take they seem to be going with. This again, it's just me interpreting it versus kind of what's there that's kind of apparent to see. Is that it strikes me again with that grappling identity thing that they really are trying to seed in there, but not strong enough. Is that it feels like that would provide context for why he left. Which is kind of the what he left behind. Not being in New York, growing up with the monks, versus kind of the he's torn between two sides of himself. The New Yorker that he no longer is. The family he had that he lost, that he didn't really get time to process. Because after he lost his family, he was just instantly thrown the monkhood of like, no, don't experience feelings. Don't do that. You're going to focus on the mission. And again, that mission is exactly, and that causes kind of the turmoil we have in Dan, which is not a bad take. He's not a bad jumping off point, and the fact that he has not processed that's not a bad idea. I just wish visually we had a more interesting way of doing that. Mm-hmm. And it's like he has an important job for the people who saved. So it's like a duty to the people who saved his life versus kind of the life that he never got to experience, and you'd be rooting for him. on that level, and on his path. I think the journey he goes through in the show, and again, at least the intended journey that he goes on in the show, is that he's repurposing the goal of the Iron Fist. The Iron Fist, pure and simple, is a killer of the hand. That's what it's a guard. You guard Kunlun, you kill the hand if they show up. That's his job. And then he's repurposing that, and this is a good idea for the show. He's taking the position of a killer guard, and making him into a superhero. That's a good take, and that's a good direction. We see inklings of that throughout the season, where Davos comes in, he's saying, "Lo, we have a very specific job," and he's, I don't fit into that. I don't want to be a killer. It's basically it's Danny learning that he doesn't want to be a killer. And that's a good direction. That's the thing I like about the character. I just wish it was stronger in the writing supporting that. So again, I think there's inklings of a good take and a good kind of season there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny, Dragon, because it's like there are good moments of writing with him. There are good moments of acting with him. It's just a mixed bag. I mean, I think the bad stuff when it comes to the performance, you will admit, he is pretty damn whiny when it gets into the revenge stuff.
Again, that's
performance-wise.
Again, I'm not disputing that at all. Yes, you're right. I mean, again, I blame the writing for that more than just, than the
you see, to me, it's more the acting for me. I mean, yeah, the writing it's not great, but I mean, you have something to chew on, and it's just Finn Jones, he doesn't, like I said, it's by the time the Iron Fist by the time we get into his whole dark side, I don't know. I just, as you said, I think we're kind of
well, I feel he's playing something. He's playing something that's not even there, because there is no Iron Fist doesn't have shouldn't really have a dark side, and he does, and he's supposed to act like he does.
And the whole back half of the season is kind of based around that. You know what I mean? So
hence the problem.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let me get to where we end with Iron Fist, and that's kind of the last thing in the arc I really got. Is by the end, I feel that once Danny finds Center, because again, the other element we have this season, that the reason for all these for that arc, and I like the reason for it. I'm not crazy about the execution, which we've kind of been down. Is that Iron Fist? He is. Idea of his chi being corrupted is kind of an interesting idea of how do you depower your guy a little bit. Okay, his chi's getting corrupted, and the idea of he's a simple monk trying to honor his parents in a very cynical corporate world. That's kind of what Danny ends up against, and a lot of negative in an increasingly negative world that wouldn't. He thinks he's going to walk back to New York and give kind of the 60s welcome of the 60s Marvel welcome of, hey, Danny Rand's back from dead. Let's not question it. Hey, welcome back.
You're right. It is very 1960s of him. That's a good kind of comparison. I like that.
He's imagining walking back into the classic Iron Fist comics.
Right.
But that's not a bad idea, and basically all this negativity he's being faced with, all the injustice that he's kind of being faced with, what's going on in his company, that anger is starting to swell, like a Zen guy facing anger, coming back to the real world instead of kind of the very black and white kind of Kunlun world. And the idea that by the end he finds his center after avenging his parents. He realizes that there's nothing left. He really, at the end, I feel that he realizes. Again, it's interpretation. There's nothing left for him in this world. I mean, there's Colleen. He can bring Colleen with him because there's just he's avenged his parents. The company's been made right, and really, there's no place for him in the company because he keeps tanking the company. So he goes back to where to make things right at Kunlun because he kind of let him down. Of course, he knows he really hurt Davos's feelings. He's going to go there, and there's a message. And by the time he figures all that out, he left Kunlun very vulnerable. He screwed up his job, and because of that. I like that he's left with more questions. I kind of like that element.
I will admit, this is by far the most cliffhangery ending that we've gotten in the Netflix shows. Yeah, literally, yeah.
I mean, think about that. I mean,
probably a part of that is that it's the show that directly leads into Defenders. That's probably why they had a little bit more room to, kind of leave things off on an ambiguous note. I'm sure that's where we're going to pick up with Danny and Colleen when we get into the Defenders. But
I'll get into some theories about that ending, but I'll say this much. I mean, think about this. The ending is that there was a struggle, and he notes that the blood, there's some dead guys and some blood there. Those are hand guys that are dead, which means there was a battle at Kunlun. He doesn't know who won or how it was going because it looked like the Kunlun was winning, but at the same time the hand got there. And the hand has never come there before, and the fact that somehow they got word, possibly from Madame Gao or somebody, the Iron Fist isn't there. Let's go to Kunlun. Let's attack him. And again, he can't get any answers because now it's gone. So it's for 15 years. So he's going to be left with a lot of questions like, did I doom the people who saved my life? And that's kind of where we leave him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's get into I would say by far the big standout character of the show. Like even hardcore critics of this show love Colleen. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. It's like even the most harsh critics of the show admit that she is a great character. So, oh man, yeah. Let me just first off say I really like how her story parallels with Danny's. As I said, Dragon, the writing is all there to have them get together. It's just the fact that I don't think Finn Jones is a very good kind of romantic lead. I don't think he does good with romantic chemistry. I think it's there on her end. Like, I feel it a lot more on her end than I do on his end. Like, with him, it's more just like, oh, I have these feelings for you, Colleen. You know what I mean?
I'll admit, chemistry is something you can't blame on the writing. I'll say that much.
I really care about you, Colleen.
Here's where I'm coming down on it, though, is that I see chemistry there, but at the same time, I will say I don't think it's handled well enough because he's really declarative about his love versus seeing his love. So that's where I see where.
Yeah, that's exactly where my problem is.
I see the connection, but it's nail on the
head. Whereas with Colleen,
I
think the acting is spot on. Like I believe that she is falling in love with this guy. You know what I mean?
She's subtle with him. Basically, that's what I'm mainly reading into it. Is that okay? She's in love with kind of the innocence of him by that. And he's playing again in the beginning. He's playing the innocence, and they've had some nice interactions together. And you see it on her more than you see it on him. He's just by like middle of it, he's saying it a lot.
A lot, yes. Okay.
And that's Colleen, it's kind of self-defeating.
Yeah. I really love how her arc is. Like, I think she has like the best writing in terms of how she goes from, someone who's very noble in terms of like, providing a safe space, almost a Pops like safe space for these kids. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yes, and that's really nice.
And then that idea gets perverted, and then by the end of the shit, like she basically has the arc that Danny should have had. You know what I mean? It's so much better realized.
Now, here's the thing with Colleen. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's where I'm kind of getting like why Colleen, again, definitely on paper, but also I see a little bit of in the shows that where Colleen and Danny have a lot in common, where they both are starting a character arc from a very similar place.
Mm-hmm, sure.
They're starting an arc from the place of, she is basically she is the model of balance that Danny is looking for. Someone who's follows the Bushido code, something very much kind of like the Kunlun, kind of the Iron Fisty position. Someone who's following kind of the ancient teachings, if you will, to honor her family. Because again, we have a good. I wish it was stated a little bit more. It's there, but just have to really pay attention to it. I mean, Colleen has a really good backstory. Her mother. Her mother died. I want to say, if it wasn't she died. Oh, she got sick. Sorry, she got sick, which again is reminiscent of when Colleen gets poisoned. That's why it's a sick thing. So, Colleen's mother got sick, and it's unstated, but I want to say in China, and then she moved to Japan with her grandfather. It's kind of a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think she has by far the most compelling backstory of the characters, including Danny, ironically enough. The kid whose plane crashed and he spent 13 years living with monks or however long it was. 15, whatever. Like, I think Colleen's backstory is more interesting than that, because
again, just as and that's the thing, the very simple kind of balancing act that Danny's looking for. Danny's looking for a way to balance this where she can balance like, okay, Bushido code, honoring my family, and at the same time trying to keep a very realistic goal, the city goal, if you will, trying to keep the dojo open. It's very simple, and she's working out.
It's so simple. It's almost like by Jove, boys, we got to raise money for the orphanage.
Exactly. It's very simple, to the point. And what does she do to kind of to raise that money, at the same time air out her frustrations over not being able to raise the money easily? She goes to something people really love about her character as well, going to the fighting ring, and she's doing awesome in the ring.
Oh yeah.
Seriously, those scenes, again, everyone complains, and we'll get to it. Everyone complains about the fighting, but everyone agrees
that is one thing that Dragon I don't understand. I think people,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
The one thing that this show is lacking is a proper hallway fight. I think that's just
No.
the main thing that people are there is a hallway.
Yeah.
It's just not a hallway fight in the same way.
We have two hallway fights in this, and I think they're fine.
But I mean, like Daredevil season 2, those hallway fights are just.
Well, of course.
I think it's just the comparison. I think that not to make like I don't necessarily think Jessica Jones had a real hallway
Technically,
fight.
I counted the stairway fight. It was like when she's going down the stairs and she's fighting the family of 3 in like episode 3.
I guess so. It's been a while since I.
Again, it's not like a single camera. Actually, wait a minute. It might have been. Well, I mean, I don't know. We track her as she's going down. It's a continuous fight.
Ironically enough, let's talk more about the fight choreography when we get into the positives, because I have way more positive than I do negative to say about it.
Okay, anyway, so
I think that's like one of the, that's one of the elements that just I don't understand the criticism for. It's not the best fight choreographies I've ever seen, but it's not bad. It's nowhere near the levels of like Dragon. Action choreography that I can't stand, that everyone goes nuts for, just to go off on a little tiny tangent. I can't stand the Bourne movies.
We gotta be more specific. I don't really know that.
Just the Matt Damon, Jason Bourne movies.
I'm saying I don't understand what the fighting thing you're getting.
Just in general, just that movie is like those movies just have this extreme shaky cam quality to it. And it's supposed to like quote unquote immerse you, but instead it's just like I can't even tell what's going on because the editing is so sloppy and slapped together. Right. But I digress. Like, I think the action in this show is way better than that. But anyways.
Yeah, we'll get into specifics about that down the line. So,
sure.
So let's see. Another cool thing kind of comes from the thing with Danny is that she socializes more because she's very to herself. Aside from the students, she really doesn't have much of a life, and Danny kind of gets her socialized. She befriends Claire.
Mm-hmm. I love her bond with Claire. That's one of the best. That's one of the best pairings I think of the season.
And her whole and we do now. Here's the thing: they throw Colleen for a loop, and I'll admit I think I like this better on the rewatch than I did the initial watch with. I'm sorry, I meant Colleen. Sorry, with
Colleen. You're good.
I did. Oh, good. So the whole her whole worldview is changed because we kind of throw her for a loop when we basically say, "Hey, Colleen's has been working for the Hand." Now, importantly, on the rewatch, what occurred to me more is that she worked for the Hand, but she didn't know it.
Sure.
That's the important thing, is that she wasn't working from the very beginning. She wasn't plotting with Danny, but I think she pieced it together at a certain point that Bakudo was she wanted to tell Danny that Bakudo knew more than he was letting on. So that's when that scene happened. That's raised the question: oh man, was Colleen a double agent from the whole time or what?
No, and I really like the way they play that reveal too, because like at first Colleen's defending it, but then the more into it goes, and the more Bushido like shows his true colors. It's it's not just an instant kind of switch where Colleen's evil, but it's also not a switch where she's on Danny's side about the issue right away.
Yeah, because again, she's been her whole thing is like that dojo came from Bakudo. Bakudo gave her that dojo, and they trusted her with an
that. I really love that element of that, Dragon. How the dojo is such a symbol of like innocence in the first half of the season, and then it just gets completely perverted by that reveal.
She's sending troubled kids to college. That's amazing.
But then those same troubled kids are becoming like soldiers in an evil army. So it's just like
let's talk about poor Daryl.
Yes. Daryl, I think, is a great sort of a little side character. You know what I mean? Throughout the show, we kind of see him. He's very innocent. You know what I mean?
He's the best out of the students. Shows most potential, and Colleen's like he's the guy worrying about the scholarship. Good kid.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when they actually get into the Hand compound, Daryl is like at first he's very friendly with Danny, but then he gets put into an incredibly compromised position with Danny, and I don't know. It's just like I said. I think Daryl is kind of like the face of that struggle with Colleen. The whole fact that this thing that was so special to her with the dojo has just become perverted based on the Hand. So that's definitely one for me. That was one of the strongest plot points of the season. Just watching it like all in one chunk the way I did. So,
Yeah, and also there was Claire. Just to transition to Claire. Claire made a valid point that I do want to address, and I don't want to. I'm not just saying something negative here. I'm saying it was kind of interesting thing that Claire points out at the very end about these two in a relationship is that they're very much alike, which is kind of dangerous.
Right, right. I like how she keeps them in check. She's like, no, I'm not saying that is a good thing. Like, you two need serious help.
They do, because again, she went down those fighting arenas to kind of air out her frustrations and very violently. And Danny, of course, he has has those flashes to the those kind of lazy PTSD flashes.
And when Danny gets into anger mode, like he kind of hulks out in a way.
Yeah, he does. I hate those wipes. I hate like the white.
I do too.
I can't on the rewatch. I just can't stand it. It's like, man, we had a whole season. We had a whole season with Jessica Jones about the proper PTSD. Now we're doing
yeah, sure.
Come on, man. She had purple. That was cool.
Oh man.
All right. So speaking of Claire.
Yes, man. Of course, I think Claire's most central role is in Luke Cage, but I was very pleasantly surprised with how much of a fixture Claire was in this story.
Yeah, it's Claire at this point, she's got a lot of Defenders experience under her belt, and of course this isn't. She hasn't lost her touch, saving people left and right, because she's saving the scientist who makes the heroin.
Yeah, I love how that's a great kind of plot line that kind of gets her into the show. I feel like that plot line is a little bit filler-ish. It's just kind of like something that we need to pad out the plot a little bit. But
it's only 2 episodes.
Yeah, but it's good filler. It's the kind of filler where it's very effective at kind of like doing what we need to do like in an economic kind of time frame. But anyways. Yeah, Claire, I think her big thing this season is definitely just sort of coming to grips with her role as the night nurse. You know what I mean? It's like she's like, okay, you know what? Yeah, my mom is right. I am attracted to these people. Like I am just like a moth to the flame when it comes to these people. You know what I mean? It's like, so she's a great sort of I feel like Claire in a lot of ways she
brings a lot of Luke Cage into this show as much as she can,
which is great. Yeah,
but seriously, there's this one moment in the rewatch, especially I really found really great with Claire's characters that when Danny's contemplating the whole revenge thing, when he's contemplating killing, she brings the Luke Cage mentality of no, you don't have to do that.
Sure.
Yeah, she's trying to mentor Danny through Luke Cage, in place of Luke Cage.
And as you said, she's basically like the guidance counselor going on a field trip with Colleen and Danny. You know what I mean?
She's the chaperone. Yeah,
right. She's like, okay, you two kids are just like crazy, and you don't know what you're doing, and you're gonna charge into something and get yourself killed.
Yeah, I mean, she's calling Danny on not thinking things through, or killing people. Again, very much kind of the Luke Cage kind of little post Luke Cage experience that she has. And I love this scene where basically she helps Danny through again one of those annoying kind of PTSD flashes. And I don't know, I'm really ranty on it. I don't know why, but
to be honest with you, I wasn't a big fan of it, but it didn't bother me as much as it bothered you.
You gotta remember, Tiki, it's in there a lot. That's why I'm saying.
No, you're right.
That's what bugs me. That's why it's stuck in there. Because I mean, it's really apparent in the last episode. Like
I was about to say, like, especially as we get like towards the end, it gets kind of.
He has that scene with Ward at the end, like Ward's like talking to him. He's distracted. He's like, okay, Danny, we've been through this. But no, seriously, when he goes like that,
I really like at the end how Ward is kind of like come around and is trying to reach out to Danny. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, sure, I'm with you there. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, like, I agree with you that the wipe is kind of just a big distraction to that whole thing. What should be a really good character moment between the two of them.
But I'll say this though, with that, the only scene I really liked that in was the plane thing, because it makes sense he would have one of those there on the plane, because of course what happened a few seconds into the plane ride. Death of the parents, and basically the idea that Claire has again not only the physical heal but the mental and emotional heal, where basically she says you talk at how you're feeling, and she kind of helps him out there. That was a really good scene.
Yeah, sure.
So Madame Gao hits on a note with Claire I think we should talk about. So this might be important with Claire going in Defenders, that Gao calls her on basically Claire looking for direction and purpose.
Yeah, which in a way, Madame Gao kind of like she sort of plants these ideas in the characters' heads very effectively. We'll get to Gao. I wish there was more Gao in the season, man. That's one of the big sticking points with me. But we'll get to her. But you know what I mean? She's very effective at kind of like just implementing like these seeds of doubt with all the characters.
Yeah, and
Ironically,
also, like,
though, I feel like what Gao was saying, like kind of challenging Claire, it's like it did kind of bring Claire into like sort of a crisis of what she's doing, sort of like like you're right, like I don't know. But in a way, like that whole like self-reflection kind of made Claire really develop and she becomes the most kick-ass that we've ever seen her by the end of the season.
yeah, I mean, she's becoming more battle ready, which again, I think some implications.
She uses a claw dragon.
Yeah, she uses kind of some wooden Wolverine claws.
It's so badass. It's so badass. And then I love the bit with the key.
Yep. It's also kind of cool. So again, like where Luke did, again, out of all the Netflix characters, Luke needed the least guidance out of all of them because she was kind of along for the ride with Luke. But Iron Fist, on the other hand, is very in need of guidance. So she's very useful, and that's kind of where she's finding her purpose. That she needs to.
So in a way, I feel like the show is a good kind of like sequel to Luke Cage with the Claire Temple story. You know what I mean? It's a good like it bleeds directly into it. I think
certainly. Okay.
Let's get into Jerry Hogarth. Yeah.
I really like Jerry Hogarth in this season. I really did.
Yeah, she's used very effectively. Like while I would say it's not like a Madame Gao situation where I just think straight up Madame Gao is a little bit underwritten. Like with Hogarth, she wasn't in a lot of it, but they used her exactly when they needed to use her, and it was really effective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, remember, this is kind of the Claire Temple thing we had with Luke Cage, where Jerry Hogarth was it created as an Iron Fist character. And that's why she feels so at home here. Sure.
Yeah, of course. And it's just it's very natural, the whole like, okay, we got this rich family. We need the family lawyer. There you go. It fits like a puzzle piece.
I mean, I love that she has this. I love the fondness she has for the Rand family. She has this.
I really want to see a flashback with young Danny and like intern Jerry.
I'd love that. I'm down for that. I mean, I can use the Michael Douglas technology, man. I don't care.
Right. Or just recast. I mean, we've seen young versions of characters in the MCU before. It's fine.
I'm thinking. I know you haven't seen this, Steve. I'm also thinking like the Blacklist, where Blacklist had an amazing thing at a certain point where they had Mr. Kaplan, who was an elderly woman, sorry, and we do this flashback, but they found someone who looks just like her, but a little younger, and it was like identical. It was amazing.
That's what I'm saying. Just find someone who looks like Matrix era Carrie-Anne Moss. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anyway, so and I think the important thing that Jerry brings to Danny's character is that she brings, again, this is the early Danny. There's a lot of we're kind of hitting the sweet spots with Danny. She's bringing the cynical edge that kind of our naive kind of our protagonist needs. She's bringing the cynical edge that he needs to get back into the company. She's a very helpful tie from his past. And I kind of, she feels like an aunt to him almost. Kind of like, it feels like his.
Oh, I can totally see that. Yeah.
She feels very much like an aunt to Danny. And of course, they reach a very logically beneficial arrangement where, okay, I bring you back, and of course, I'm the lawyer. I'm the my law firm's on your retainer. So basically, you need a lawyer, you come to us, no one else. It's constant employment from the rich guy who owes you.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I think much the same way that Claire brings a flavor of Luke Cage, I think Jerry definitely brings the Jessica Jones flavor with her cynicism and her sarcasm, and much like it seems like Jessica Jones is going to be giving Danny a hard time in The Defenders, which I love because I think in a way that is kind of directly like, yeah, we know this guy's not the most popular guy. But
I'm dying for a scene in Defenders where you have Jerry kind of like being the intermediary between the two of them. That would be cool. And of course, bear in mind that law firm now has Foggy Nelson, so we have a few kind of pillars at.
I've got theories galore about Foggy and how he fits into everything. Trust me, but
I just want to see him become like her sidekick for a while. That'd be awesome. It's Foggy and Foggy, our super upbeat lawyer, and Jerry Hogarth.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's where we start out with the Defenders. Is Foggy basically is Hogarth's sidekick? That seems to be the direction they're headed in.
But,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to say this real quick, is that with Jerry, another great thing we have Jerry here is that, she's really, I think the reason she's really receptive to Danny, one, coming back from the grave, the reason, like, the minute he says J Money and kind of walks her through, like, a little bit of proof, she doesn't need to be sold anymore like all these other characters. She doesn't need, like, so much evidence to be convinced. Like, she buys into it after all the extraordinary stuff she's seen. Jessica Jones, I love that. She's reluctantly warming up to people a lot more than she would have before Jessica Jones.
Sure.
So honestly, this is my favorite take on Jerry Hogarth we've got. I mean, again, Jessica Jones, she had like a problem section in that show, and I think because I think here she's so fully formed. I really like when Jerry Hogarth shows up here. It's my favorite take on her.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to Davos.
Davos.
Yeah, I did.
It's a V ticket. Davos.
Oh, it's a V?
Yeah.
Davos?
Yeah, Davos.
Well, why didn't you correct me on that? I have it written down in the chat.
Well, anyway.
So Davos, I'm sorry. Again, I think the problem with this guy is that he's a great character. He's one of my favorite elements of the show.
I was really excited with Davos because I had a theory on who he was, and at the end I looked it up, and I was like, oh my god, he is who he is, and I'm so excited.
Oh, you'll have to tell me about that, but
yeah, go on.
Like I said, I just think he shows up a little bit too late. I think that's the problem. I think if he was in the show, like maybe, let's say he shows up, like episode 10, 11? It's very late.
It's 9. He shows up at the end of 9 because that's when they have Gao captured, and he follows Danny at the end of that. So it's 9 onward. That's when he's introduced. He's at the very end of 9 because he's the hot dog vendor.
So basically, he's in 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah,
right?
Not everything but the last. Well, he even shows up in the last one.
He does show up.
He's in the end of 9 to 13. That's where he's there.
So I just think that's not enough. I don't know. Like, I get that he's like a mysterious character and they're building him up and everything. Like I said, I really like everything they do with him. I just really think that we could have used a flashback.
Again, connection to Kunlun. That's why he's really that good. Again, all the Kunlun stuff was very well done. He's a representative of that.
Yeah, but like I said, with much like all the Kunlun stuff, it's just woefully underrepresented.
Yeah. So, something really great with Davos is that Davos in the comics turns into the Steel Serpent, which essentially is kind of like the I'm trying to go through what his arc is and what I really like what they went with his arc. He's very much like Mordo from Doctor Strange, like the friend who turns.
It's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, I was kind of like thinking the same thing as I was watching the last few episodes. Yeah,
so that's exactly what they did here, and then it's similar, very similar to how he is in the comics. Like one minor difference is that he went to do the Iron Fist test on his own accord, and then he failed, and that was like the shame he bared. He was just jealous because of that. But here making like kind of again they went the Mordo route with it, which I really did appreciate, which I think gave Davos more colors here. And I remember like in the Defenders pitch we had way back in the day, as well as the Iron Fist pitch. And Steel Serpent essentially is I'm gonna throw this out there, might not be the best comparison, but he's kind of the reverse Flash Iron Fist. That's literally.
I could see that.
His costume is that he has the Iron Fist mask and everything, and we've been hinting at this guy ever since Daredevil, because the logo he's going to have on his chest is the heroin logo. That's the Steel Serpent logo, the stuff that's on the drugs, the heroin that we've seen since Daredevil. Steel Serpent, hence his name. He will eventually take on it's the wingless Iron Fist logo.
Right.
So anyway, I was very psyched for going into it, like thinking, is this the guy? Is that the guy?
And I do think it's a very theatrical kind of dynamic that he and Danny have throughout the course of the, what we do get with them. It's very, it's very heated. It's very prickly, but at the same time, you see that there's a bond there between them. I know it's a cheap gag, but I love the pizza thing.
Yeah.
Just Claire trying to make a New Yorker out of him.
And that was nice. Again, his dynamic with Claire is nice. And again, I like how Claire can reach people like that. Now, with Davos as well, again, he's understandably frustrated because, again, this is the guy who was passed over for the Iron Fist thing. His buddy got it.
I really like how he's a character who's frustrated with his position. And
he takes it with dignity.
Exactly. I think that's a really good representation. Just it's all like, ironically enough, if he didn't turn into a bad guy, he'd be a pretty decent role model. You know what I mean? For like,
that's the thing. This guy acts like the Iron Fist, acts like what Kunlun's vision of the Iron Fist is.
mm-hmm.
But he's relegated to the side. And here's the bit. I don't know if it caught it, Steve. One of the great bits with Davos we had in the season is that everyone's saying, basically, can you do the Iron Fist thing too? It's like the ultimate. You feel so like constantly saying, "Hey, can you do that too? Are you also an Iron Fist?" And just like he looks down a little bit, just saying, because it's just the poor Davos, just like, "Hey, you're a failure, right?"
Oh God.
I mean, yeah, your heart goes out to the guy, and of course, it just boils down to is a disagreement of like what the Iron Fist is. What if this is what the Iron Fist is supposed to be? And just Davos, he's following the old ways versus the new ways, and just start getting the fisticuffs. And it's unfortunate what happens with Davos, and he becomes really jealous and hates. It's like his dignity is turned to jealousy, and he
However, I don't think his turn against Dany is nearly as inexplicable as the character that he's talking to at the end of episode 13.
Yes.
I mean, like, that is, like, he is the good way to have a character who's close to Dany and then turns against him. That is the bad way to do that, but we'll get there when we get there.
The implication, based on the heroine, again, the Steel Serpent heroine thing, is that he's working with Gal, which implies that he is working for the Hand.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be really interesting if we see him in Defenders. I will say that, because it would be cool to see, Davos, as like one of the agents of the Hand that will.
It's funny. I think there's a lot of like wild card, like, secondary villains that we could see into Defenders. I think Stryker's another one that's possible.
I mean, it's possible, but I think he's just on the. It's interesting. It's like how Jessica Jones is kind of outside the Hand's radar, it would seem. So there's it depends on how big we go with our connections. Because I've thrown out the theory that IGH is another kind of. It's like Alexandra might be the head of the IGH.
I think with Diamondback, he'd definitely be more connected with IGH.
That's the thing, because again, if I'm connecting it all, I would say the IGH company is run by Alexandra and is also responsible for the experiments which bred the Purple Man and bred Luke Cage, and of course will breed Diamondback.
So that, yeah. And anyways, I don't want to get it, but it's just kind of like that's one of the things I'm excited about with Defenders is like, ooh, who's going to show up?
Right. Okay. Let's move on from there then.
Okay. Let's get to the last character, Kyle.
Yes, Kyle.
Do you know what I'm referencing?
It sounds familiar to you. I'm sorry.
I'm referencing Dexter.
Oh, okay. I got the Kyle Miller thing, right? Like,
yeah. Kyle, come on, Kyle.
I'm thinking more about when he was dancing, when he was just saying,
I just love John Lithgow's delivery of that name throughout that season. Kyle!
I was thinking more of, when he's like so giddy and he's dancing in front of him, like, hey, we're going on a trip.
Like, it's just very, very brief Dexter tangent. It's so funny that, like, throughout the whole season, like, he's so giddy when he calls Dexter Kyle, but then that turn, the hello Dexter Morgan, it's like, oh, crap.
Hello. Dexter Morgan.
All right, anyways.
Like, I'll make it relevant. Back in the day, Michael C. Hall was considered for Daredevil.
Well, there you go.
All right.
I think Michael C. Hall makes a better Batman.
Vampire Batman.
I think he'd make a good regular Batman, too, if they ever cast him. And I'm pretty sure they're going to need to recast Batman sooner rather than later.
Let's stay on point.
Okay. Anyways.
So, Kyle.
Okay,
Kyle. So Kyle he's just an example of Harold Meacham's manipulation, because again, Harold Meacham is such kind of a manipulative guy.
Can I just say I'm someone who like profusely apologizes and people get on me for it, and I apologize for apologizing, and that scene is like the most relatable scene in the whole series for me.
It's an intimidating scene because you're wondering if Harold's going to do something bad to him and he almost does. He pulls out the belt to kind of like give him an example of every time he made mistakes, father hit him with the belt. And I love the concept. I just love the origin of Kyle here, where he's explained to Ward why he has Kyle. He's young and he's breeding a yes man who, again, we get an example through Kyle what he does to Ward, which is he psychologically abuses people and kind of trains them to be his yuppies.
Sure.
which is
I also
terrible.
love how Ward calls out, like, "Hey, has anyone seen Kyle recently?"
Joy has this like, who's Kyle?
Yeah.
Of course, poor Kyle, he's taking in the scenery, let's say.
Oh, yeah.
See, there used to be an adage of "Lee swim with the fishes," but he doesn't really have an aquarium. He just has kind of like a little iguana habitat or something.
Right.
I really know that's. I don't even know if there's an iguana in there. Did you see any lizards or anything?
Did they? I wouldn't know. I'd have to go back and check.
I think he might have, but anyway, back to the.
Yeah.
Just Kyle. He's nice kid, a little whimpery, but it's
Mm-hmm. All right, let's pick up the pace, Dragon, because we're already like an hour into this thing. We've got like 8 segments to go, so let's get into the 13 trials. So here is where we'll basically give kind of our brief thoughts on each of the 13 episodes. So, Dragon, let's start with episode 1. Snow gives way.
Yeah, Snow gives way. So, this was. Let's see. We have some good set pieces in this episode introduced that we're going to be going to a lot in the season. That's kind of the main takeaway from the first. We have the Rand Enterprise, the opening sequence at Rand, where the homeless Danny is kind of getting in there to see the Meachums. We have the dojo where he's meeting Colleen, all that stuff going on, and the Chinatown sequence, which looks really good and expresses that we're really in the Chinatown section of kind of our New York kind of setting with the Defenders. Again, really grounded, and this is a section we visited once in Daredevil season 2 with Madame Gao. It's the only time we've ever been to Chinatown. So it's kind of nice. We're going somewhere where the unexplored the unexplored sections of Hell's Kitchen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm not too crazy about this one.
I'm with you too. It's an underwhelming. It's kind of an underwhelming beginning.
It is. You know what? I'm just gonna bring it up now.
Well, yeah, you sure you want to do that?
Yes, I'm sure, because I really don't have. I really don't have a whole heck of a lot else. So, what's the name of the character? Big Al, right?
Yes, Big Al. Big Al is the homeless man that Danny befriends when he's kind of in his homeless phase in the park.
So it's like the non-gay version of Big Gay Al from South Park.
That's what you've been waiting for.
Yes, that's what I've been waiting. No, that's not. No. So, Dragon, basically, just imagine me like, I'm trying to give this show a chance. I'm trying to be positive about it. I'm really I'm like, okay, this doesn't seem too bad, but I have heard negative things about this show. And then imagine my reaction. I think this might be the most poorly written scene in anything MCU for my money. So imagine my reaction when I have this scene with Danny, he's in the park, and we have this conundrum, right? We have this conundrum where Danny needs to get in contact with Harold Meacham, and he needs to look up information about what happened to him, what, like the media outlook on it. And then along comes Big Al. Dragon, look, I wouldn't mind this if it wasn't for the sloppy writing, okay? The writing is it's so bad. It's like Big Al just literally, along comes this magical hobo who sits down and he's like, hey, I have this phone. You can look people up on it. Is there anyone you need me to look up? Does it bother you as much as it bothers? To me, Dragon, that is it's the epitome. It's like the pinnacle of why the writing in the show is poor. Because it's just there's no nuance to it. There's no oh, hey, hey, you're not from around here. Yeah, I know. I'm not sure who I am. Well, I have this phone. You know what I mean? It's like if they would have added one line of dialogue to indicate that maybe Danny needs the phone. Instead, it just seems so random. It seems so thrown in there of oh, hey, I got this phone, buddy. What do you think?
I'll say this, Tiki.
Obviously, it's a very, very, very small little moment, but to me, that was the moment in watching Iron Fist where it's oh, this is not going to be great, is it? Go ahead.
I'll admit this. I think the nuance that you're talking about would have helped it a great deal. I mean, on the whole, though, I do like what I'll admit it's a real head scratcher of an idea because I like the implication we were doing with Big Al. Okay, Danny would have a homeless friend throughout the season, but no, he dies.
Right.
You know, I mean, initially I like kind of what they're doing, like a friendly homeless man that kind of gives Danny perspective. He has a nice moment with him where he says, people think we're a lot alike because again, he sees how other people see him through Al, and we have the weird eagle thing that again is just a really weird symbol.
I do not like it.
I defended it on the first watch. I defended it on the second watch. I just did not.
To me, that almost bothered me more than the wipes because it's just so cheesy.
You didn't come back as much as the wipe, so it didn't. That's like maybe like a second most kind of head scratching thing. So, anyways, the last thing I guess for the whole episode one is that episode one. I think the big takeaway why this episode doesn't really work as well is that we waste a lot of time doubting Danny's story, like doubting if he's Danny Rand. Honestly, we could have just opened the season almost on episode 2.
It almost kind of seems like just one episode, like one, again, Dragon, it's like one exchange of dialogue between Danny and the Meachums is all you need, but the Meachums just, here's the thing with this episode that I think really does not sit well with a lot of people, is that the Meachums are introduced as just like the most conceited, unlikable, spoiled brats. And with Joy, I never really warmed up to Joy, but with Ward, I mean, I definitely think Ward gets a lot better as the series goes on.
Ward started very terrible, though. He had a rotten
You want to talk about that lousy flashback we get with young Ward?
Well, I figured you want to do that in the other segment, but
okay, fair enough.
Anyway, the point is, so again, we honestly, if we could have like taken only the important stuff out of this episode and put in episode 2, it probably would have served everything better.
Okay, so let's get into episode 2. Shadowhawk takes flight, which is a kind of a weird sort of unconventional. It's like it's all set within this this mental institution. We have
the psychiatric hospital.
Yeah, I don't know, Dragon. To tell you the truth, I like this episode more when I first saw it, and then rewatching it didn't really stick well with me. I think there's kind of the mental institution thing. It's kind of a touchy thing with me, but.
Anyway, here, one about the title. First of all these titles, I want to just make sure we get this out of the way with all these titles. That's the point, is that they're all martial art moves. I mean, they're all kung fu moves, I should say. They're all, same difference. The point is they're all named after moves. That's kind of a neat little detail with the episodes.
So weirdly, Dragon, one of my main kind of issues with episode 2 is I think that the intro we get to the friend who shows Iron Fist around, it's just so out of nowhere. Like he's wanting to kill Danny like right off the bat, and it's just like, and then he's the guy who throughout the rest of the episode we're supposed to sympathize with.
I like Simon because I don't know. It didn't bother me because it was just I
would have liked Simon if we didn't have that first introduction to him. You know what my problem with that is, Dragon, is that it's like, hey, look, crazy people are murderers, but they have a good heart too, right? You know, they might have homicidal tendencies every once in a while, but
there's a reason it didn't bother me. It's not really a good reason, but it's the reason it didn't bother me. It was in the Batman Telltale game. There's a scene where Bruce Wayne wakes up in a mental hospital, and he basically we have a scene like that, and that's kind of why I guess I was a little used to it. Yeah, not a good reason.
That's a very specific reason to not like something, but or to like something, or to not be bothered by something.
Well, yeah, it's not bothered because I've seen it before. That's my main take. I've seen that in media, something.
I don't know. You see what I mean, though? It's just like if we would have just, I just don't like the introduction, and then it just kind of makes the rest of the episode really loopy.
It's something to make you uneasy and just like Danny's in he's not in Kansas anymore. It's kind of the opening.
What I do like about this episode is how we get. I think this is a good kind of representation of like how Danny is being drugged throughout the episode, which of course the drug theme is going to come back with Ward later on, so that's kind of throwing that in there. I think it's a very realistic depiction of what it feels like to be drugged. From what I understand, just kind of the fogginess of the mind and everything. And of course we get the, kind of some more Harold stuff, which I think, and to be clear, in episode 1 too, I think Harold Meachum is probably one of the more fun elements in episode 1, and he just continues to be compelling here.
I mean, Meachum's the only smart guy in the room saying, well, let's listen to him. Let's listen to what he says.
Right.
Ask the right questions. And that's another thing episode 2 has over 1. So, I mean, again, the psychiatric hospital. I mean, I like the idea of like this set location that Danny's trapped in for the episode. We end on him using the fist for the first time and getting out of the hospital. I like that, and by proxy, I like Simon through the end of like he's the guy on his side saying he calls him Danny for the first time. Kind of a sweet little scene there, and then just just like he's kind of laying out for him like the danger of the 72-hour hold thing, which I think is really unjust. And I think it's a real kind of scary thing, the whole 72-hour hold.
Yeah, and it's more realistic than you would think too.
That's the thing. It's a scary thing that we see.
Scares the shit out of me.
It's a scary, rotten thing that we see.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Anyway, and honestly, again, it doesn't hold up. I'm with you. It doesn't hold up on the rewatch as well. Not for the same reasons, but just it just feels like, again, more like convoluted and like why is no one believing Danny does no one check this? He is really I don't know. They give as many excuses as they can, but it gets repetitive after a while.
It just stalls the plot, yeah.
But the good news is it condenses it down to one episode where we solve it by the end. So that's
right.
Good. Okay, anyway, moving on to episode 3.
Episode 3, Rolling Thunder Cannon Punch.
Now, this is a good one here. This is not a bad one. Not as good as the next one, I think, but. We're making progress with Jerry Hogarth. This is where we introduce Jerry Hogarth. We're making a lot of progress in the plot. I mean, this episode, this 4, and honestly, there's the chunk up to the revenge plot here. I think is where we're hitting a good stride.
This is pretty much, yeah. I'll agree with you because we're getting, we're getting a lot of development with Colleen. Mm-hmm. Let's see, is this where Claire comes in, or is that 4?
Let me think. This is we have the cage match stuff here. Claire is in episode 4. Claire's 4.
Okay. So yeah, but like I said, really good stuff with Colleen with the cage match stuff. I mean, as everyone points out, that's like some of the best action in the show.
I'm sorry, 5 is Claire. 5 is Claire.
5? Okay. Oh wow,
yeah,
that's later than I thought it was, but okay, fair enough.
But yes, we're making progress in the plot. We have the cage match stuff, which is really some of the best fighting in the show. I mean, there's a lot of decent. There's good fighting. I'm just saying that's kind of also like she's really good in the ring. And honestly, that's the thing I think everyone agrees on. Like that's the fighting they were expecting for the whole show versus kind of a more diverse thing, which we got in the other scenes. But
right,
I thought the bowl was clever. I like the bowl finger print plot point that was also introduced.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And of course, the Meachums are pricks.
So. Yep. Okay.
Episode 4. Now, 4 feels the most solid out of all these episodes. I got to be honest. I think 4 kind of hits a lot of the great.
Episode 4 is let's see, it's 8 diagram Dragon Palm.
Yes. See, this one has, one, we have Harold Meacham's charisma. It kind of sells you on something that sounds ridiculous, but this is kind of where we hit the thing with Harold Meacham, where it doesn't make a lot of sense, but he's a lot of fun. Where Harold Meacham, he basically, because again, like Danny, basically the last episode ended like Danny fell from the climbing his building, learning that Harold Meacham's alive. Then basically, instead of like knocking him out and putting him somewhere else, hey, allow him to wake up inside the penthouse. He meets Harold, and Harold just with his charisma and his charm wins Danny over on his side. And I thought that was kind of a thing. They kind of sold me on it, and it's like, okay, Harold kind of won the Iron Fist to his side, which he can use for his advantage.
There's an ironic thing with Harold is that I almost kind of think they make him too likable to like where the point where he is the big bad of the show. It's almost like you don't even like really want him to be, you know what I mean? But yeah, you're right. Of course, this has the press conference that you really like.
This has one of my favorite action sequences, which we'll get to later.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see Again, we have another. So I have a few of my favorites. A lot of my favorite scenes are actually in this episode. So of course, is the action scene. Basically, the scene where Danny comes back. Danny kind of he returns the Rand thanks to Harold, just saying, "Yeah, you forget the legal stuff. Just allow him back in. Let the kid in." We get to see Danny being all altruistic and stuff in the boardroom, which is again, I think that's when I like the boardroom stuff. I mean, we have like a good businessman. I like a nice businessman. It's kind of a rarity in this modern world. So again, overall solid episode, which also introduces the hand. Introduce the hand at the end, and they're coming in. This hands coming slowly into focus at the end as well. With gals, you'd be they have the gal introductions next, so not yet. So anyway.
Okay, episode 5, Under Leaf Pluck Lotus. Okay, so this one's all about kind of like the hand sort of slowly weaving its way into Rand Enterprises, and Danny isn't exactly sure why. It's a very like Wayne Enterprises type plot.
Yeah, here's the cool thing. So the end of episode 4 had the heroine ending, which of course had both symbols, the symbol on the chest and the symbol on the heroine, which pays off the Daredevil thing. We basically big symbol of the hand, like, oh my God, Madam Gal. And episode 5, we start off with that great distribution opening. Feels almost like a Breaking Bad opening.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a sequence. It's like kind of like the everyone knows it's Wendy. It's kind of their sequence of that. It's not as catchy, but
I was thinking more along the lines of one taste and you'll know.
Right.
Anyways.
Yeah, the Poise Hermanos.
Yeah, where we see like the big long line of like trucks going out. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, let's see. So again, we have more of Danny being the nice businessman. We have the introduction to Claire and the takeout scene. Takeout scenes are really nice, kind of like.
I really like it. Every time I watch the takeout scene, it just makes me really hungry for Chinese.
I enjoy the pleasantry of all that. Like, he allows Claire to take over all the extra food they have laid out. That was nice. That was nice.
No, you're right. That one tiny detail does kind of stick out to me as like a positive with Danny. It's like he let Claire take some fancy takeout. Yeah,
that's the billionaire stuff I really like with Danny, where he's a nice guy. He's like saying, "Hey, let's sell the medication at cost. Let's sell the cure at cost. Let's take out means."
You know what? With the medication at cost thing, I think that was a stupid move on Danny's end. I really do. Because as they're like pointing out very logically, like, well, Danny, you realize the profit goes to medical research, right? Like, you realize we're not just like taking all this money and pocketing it. And Danny's like, no, it's not right. I am the Iron Fist. It's my company. I don't know.
I'll admit, I wish they found a middle ground solution for that one. But, let's just sell it cheap. Can we agree on selling it cheap? All right, we'll sell it cheap. Not $5.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Like, let's just make sure I'll motion here with my 51% there. Let's just make sure that it gets sold.
I mean, selling at cost. It's like, well, dude, you're kind of taking away the whole point of like a company and profit margins and all that at that point. You know what I mean? Like, I understand having sympathy, but it's
To be fair, later on when he does the nice thing with the cancer, with the cancer thing, that was the right thing for him to do. That's when he.
I'll agree to that. Yeah. But also, to the point of the pills, it's like they also make a really good point against him, where it's like, well, Danny, you realize that like mostly the people who are going to be buying that are like the big corporations who are going to be buying it in bulk and then distribute. No, it has to be at cost because it's the right thing to do.
Well, anyway, let's just say they're on the scent with that, and they get it better down the line with the other thing. But regardless, it's the idea like the nice businessman, just like the optimistic kind of naive businessman. It was
okay,
good fun stuff with Danny.
So episode 6, Immortal emerges from cave.
Is also we ended 5 on the Gal reveal, so I'm just one last thing. But anyway, speaking of 6, I feel is the episode 8 of this season.
I think 6 is like by far the best episode of the season. Yeah, I agree.
What's funny? This was directed by. This is funny. The director and star of The Man with the Iron Fist did this episode.
RZA.
RZA, yeah.
Right.
Kind of funny. And again, it's the best episode of the. For me, it's the episode 8 in terms of like this. To me, is like it's a very simple episode. It's kind of from start to finish. We have a lot of really great stuff here. It's a simple episode with the hand.
Again, like this is where kind of the good action does kind of come into play. Where I kind of question the critics of the show. Like, yeah, it's not like super amazing like a Daredevil hallway fight, but not every fight scene in a Marvel Netflix show needs to be a Daredevil hallway fight. You know what I mean?
I think this one, just thinking about it now, I think this one really tickled my fancy with kind of the 3 rounds. It's a tournament.
It's such a video game. It's a video game in the best kind of way.
Sure. For me, it was more like it took me back to my love of Dragon Ball Z and the World Martial Arts tournaments.
Yes, I'd say specifically Dragon Ball with the World Martial Arts start. Yeah.
Whenever I say Dragon Ball Z, I'm always thinking Dragon Ball. That's
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, more if I'm going to be really showing my Dragon Ball love here for a brief moment, the Fortune Teller Baba thing, where basically they had like 5 matches that were all distinct and all different, which feels very much like this.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Anyways, let's see. So, but I mean, yeah, this one I think really hits the really great beats. And Ward, honestly, for me, I think Ward this episode on because this is where
I agree. I love the plot line. It's a very, very simple, relatable plot line of like, okay, Ward, you need to get Randy back to the office, or Danny. You need to get Danny back to the office by a certain time.
He's such a cute nickname for him, though. Randy.
What, Randy? You're right. It would be
were so cute. See, if Joy was more likable, she could call him Randy.
Oh God! But Joe, we'll get to Joy. We'll get to Joy. But
it's not exactly an ode to Joy.
Yeah, but
so anyway, I like the Lei Kung device. Essentially, kind of the stick for Iron Fist is Lei Kung. Kind of like the mentor was like saying, "Oh, you're doing it all wrong. You gotta be all emotionless. You gotta be, gotta stick to your guns."
It's not as well done as Stick is, but it's probably the best like Kunlun flashback type stuff that we get.
Yeah, and we have some we have cool hand warriors and assassins. Like the guys he's going up against per this tournament. I like that each round's different. I have like make. Whoever falls out of that circle bit was really cool when they cut their hands and they made the circle.
Mm-hmm.
The circle, the bride of the 9 spiders, and of course Scythe at the end. Our karaoke loving guy, which I guess more on that later.
I really like all these different like personalities when it comes to the hand.
I know, right? And that represents the hand so well because it's kind of like a Hydra thing where everyone's many people you wouldn't suspect are in the hand.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Let's see. So it's very well. I thought it was really well directed. The 3 different stages. Claire. Also in this story, we have Claire and Colleen having an adventure with saving the scientists. Saving
right.
And Claire saying "Sweet Christmas" a lot. That starts here.
Yes.
The award story starting to develop. We end with the hand having no honor, which I really love the ending of that. Just showing that it's like Danny's naivete kind of bleeding over into the Iron Fist life of you thought you've never gone up against the hand before. The hand will do anything it takes to win. Like they'll threaten to slit the girl's head despite whatever arrangement you struck. And he's just baffled at the end, and Danny's questioning his purpose. Again, this episode hits all the sweet spots I want with the show, honestly. So.
Oh yeah.
Right. Moving on to 7 then.
Okay, episode 7. Felling tree with roots. I have no idea what a felling tree is.
Could it be feeling tree with roots? Could that be a type?
No, because I remember on
it's not falling tree with roots, is it?
No, when I was watching it on Netflix, I remember the same thing. So if it's on Netflix like that, it's got to be right. But
no, I get it. I think a part of me feels that's in reference to the tree that Gao planted in Kunlun. That's what I think that's in reference to. Well, I know it's a move. I'm saying kind of a duel.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
So, Dragon, this is an episode that's very kind of centered on the Rand Enterprises, right?
Yes. Well, it's yes, we have a lot of corporate stuff, which I think kind of bogs down the episode a little bit here.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, the corporate stuff kind of moves at a more brisk pace than I thought it would. Where by the end of this episode, like Danny and the Ward siblings, Danny and the Meacham siblings are ousted. You know what I mean? It's like we're not just like twiddling our thumbs with this plot. It's like there's forward momentum with it. And while I agree, there is kind of like it's a little bit kind of. It does bog down the episode just a little bit. I do think, like I said, it's at least we're not dealing with this whole issue of Danny being a hindrance to the company for a long stretch of episodes, because we need Danny out in the field doing all this other stuff, and we can't just have the whole constant issue of him needing to be back at the office. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because the main takeaway is the conversation he has with Gao, which kind of leaves him with more questions that he needs answered. About her involvement in she met his father.
Mm-hmm.
The involvement there. Also, I like how we begin the episode with Harold and we end the episode with Harold, where the hands like severing the finger and stuff. And at the end, of course, Ward kills his father in this episode.
Yes.
For him, for the first time, it's the second death on Harold. Out of 3. Out of 3.
Out of 3. Yes.
Technically 4. Technically 4.
Anyways.
If you want to really split hairs, because anyway, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
All right, episode 8.
Okay, episode 8 is The Blessing of Many Fractures. This is the adventure in China, right?
This is another good one, too. I'll admit this. I don't think it's as solid as 6, but this is, the road trip to China.
I mean, I will say this is a very, very, very loose, episode 8 being it's a good one. It's a good one.
I mean, it fits the structure of an episode 8, but it's not quite as, it doesn't feel like an episode 8.
Exactly. But you know what? For being a solid, good episode, that's, good enough in this season. But, I don't know. Let's see. Is this where we get the Drunken Master?
Yes, this is where we get Xiao Chang.
That is, to me, by far the best fight scene of the show. I'll talk about that more later. But
we capture Gao at the end of this episode. That's kind of the other takeaway. Then he's wondering if he's going to kill Gao. Because, again, Claire's point, you didn't really think this through, did you?
Again, I like the whole like element of like Claire being the chaperone on the road trip.
Yeah, and also with the Meachums here, we actually have a good bit of with the Meachums where they're kind of there for each other. Where Ward and Joy have that scene talking about kind of what the plan is. Basically they're conspiring with the blackmail thing.
And this is this is also where we get the crazy shining elevator blood hallucinations as well.
Yep. So speaking of mind games, let's go to episode 9. I'm sorry, do you have anything else on 8?
No, that's fine. Episode 9 is The Mistress of All Agony.
That's a good title. That's a really good title for a Gal-centric episode, because this is where Gal plays all the mind games with everyone.
And I would say this is an appropriate episode 9 as well. I mean, I would say Luke Cage is probably the only episode 9 where it's like one of the weaker episodes of the season. I would say the other episode 9s have been all very solid, you know what I mean? But and yeah, I think this is one of the stronger episodes, mostly for the Gal of it all. It kind of kills me that this is the last time Gao is a major role in an episode. I mean, she shows up a couple more times after this, but I don't know, Dragon, one of the things I really love about Gao is like the insidious nature of her, where she's like it's not quite on the level of Court of Owls, but it's kind of in that same vein where she's been operating within the company for decades. You know,
I know that was we have to do kind of a Ra's al Ghul thing with her. Too, where she's lived for centuries. I didn't know that until the second watch. If I'm being honest, like, it's been a while since I've seen the seasons. I completely forgot about that. Oh my god, they've done the hand, which possibly means she was brought back to life too.
Oh, I'm sure right, but but yeah, like I said, this is one of the stronger episodes. I love how Gao is in such a vulnerable position, but in that vulnerable position, she's like at the height of her powers, is how Rudnick would say.
Yes.
She's just like very manipulative, very much like putting doubts in everyone's head. Even under the truth serum, she tries to kind of spin things her way.
Let's not forget this episode, of course, has the very memorable rebirth of Harold Meacham.
Oh my God, yes. Oh God. We'll talk about that more when we get to Harold. But
let's see. By the end, we introduce Bakuto and Davos. That's kind of a big takeaway from it. Well, I mean, we met Bakuto briefly in others. This is where he kind of comes into.
They really should have set him up a little bit more, because
they did set him up because he and Colleen had a scene together mentioning that he gave her the dojo. So,
what I'm saying though is that scene where he is introduced is so brief, and it's you don't even register to pay attention to him almost. But anyways, so episode 10, Black Tiger Steals Heart. This is kind of where we get to the whole point where, Danny himself is not at his strongest, but I do think this episode is really good, especially the reveal with Colleen.
Again, I feel it runs the risk of being convoluted. Again, the first watch more convoluted. Second watch, I'm getting it. I think it makes more sense on the rewatch.
To be honest with you, I got it right away. There was a period of time, Dragon. I don't know why. It's just my morbid curiosity, right? But I did a lot of research into cults. So I really like that element of this episode. It's kind of this episode, it's like we have that great setting where it feels like everything is super cool and chill. You know what I mean? At first, it feels like everything's all feeling groovy and whatnot. But, as we go in, as we kind of dive under the surface, it's, things get more and more kind of dark. And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Bakuto as a villain. I don't necessarily think he's the most intimidating presence on a Marvel Netflix show. Let's just say
I like how Bakuto has it all together. Like he's just kind of a hands businessman almost, and I kind of like that.
He is, but here's the thing. Here's probably no, never mind. I'll save it for.
Let me say this though. So yeah. here's why I'd say I was worried about it definitely in the first watch, and why the reason I'd say it was convoluted and I was worried about it is that the whole idea of a good hand, like them selling it as a good hand and a bad hand, that sort of thing, was it's simpler than that. But when they said that, I was thinking of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where there was a good shield and there was a bad shield. It was like, oh god, it was not. They did a whole thing. This is after Winter Soldier, where there was another group, a faction of the Hand that came out saying, "No, we were the good hand all along." It was like the Clone Saga of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh man!
It only lasted for a season. They got rid of it. It was just that's the thing. That was my concern on the first watch. That was why I'm not following this.
No, I mean, to me, maybe it's just because I haven't gone through that with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but to me, I got it kind of right away. Like, I was like, okay, these guys, like, yeah, they might not be, like, evil like the Gao-centric people, but, they're very nefarious and shady at the same time.
Yeah, they represent the appeal, like how the hand has so many members. That's what this
right, and like I said, I do think this does a great job of kind of, like, showing a cult, is a kung fu academy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Daryl's there. Everyone likes Daryl.
Oh, God.
Yeah, Daryl's a nice young man.
Everyone loves Daryl. If he was killed off of The Walking Dead, the show would be canceled.
Okay, moving on from all the Daryl love.
Yes, okay. So episode, see, we're at episode...
Also, the Joy and Harold meet each other. That's the other takeaway from 10.
Right. Let's see. Episode 11 is lead horse back to stable. So yeah, as you said, this is kind of... Let's see.
This to me was a slow episode. This was some slow aftermath. We had a really cool opening with the cave. We had a cool opening with the... with the Davos, we revealed that Iron Fist, he's emerged with the symbol burned on his chest. He succeeded. He is now officially the Iron Fist. Good opening, and the Davos stuff is good. I'm just saying.
The Davos stuff is definitely the best part of this episode, but I agree with you. It's kind of like I'm trying to struggle for things that happened in this episode.
Yeah, this is the by numbers of it all. This is where we have to get to a point where Danny's very thick-headed about trusting Colleen, and he's... the whole, like, can we trust Colleen? And this is where I'm getting with the whole convoluted thing on the first watch. Like, this 10 and 11 really kind of combine like that for me. It's like, it's hard to... You understand why there's some... he's feeling conflicted, and his powers aren't working because he's feeling conflicted. It's strange.
Can I just say I really don't like the whole, like, oh, my powers aren't working because I'm... Like, can we just stop doing that, please?
To be fair, it makes... With the chi thing, it makes more sense than it did in Spider-Man 2, you gotta admit.
Yeah, but Spider-Man still did it better, though. Even if it makes more sense, Spider-Man did it better. I don't know.
Anyway, just 11. There's really not a lot to say about it. We have the Davos stuff. That's the main takeaway of 11. I'm sorry. We had a cool opening. All the Davos stuff was good in 11.
You're right. Okay, episode 12, Bar the Big Boss. A lot of fun Ward stuff in this episode.
Yeah, 12 was. I thought 12 was a good penultimate because one we saw Bakuto is really cool in this episode. He's the guy with giving all the orders, and he has like some really cool fight scenes. And again, he doesn't want to kill Dan. He wants to use him as a symbol for his cause. He wants to use him as essentially the boogeyman. Like, hey, if you go against the hand, I'll feed you this guy.
Right. Of course, this is the episode where Ward really, stands his ground, and I don't know. It's funny that Ward kind of like takes a back seat for a few episodes, which makes sense because he's in the hospital. He's in kind of the drug rehabilitation center or whatever. But
he tries to kill Harold again in this episode.
Yeah, he tries. But, yeah, I really like the the split down the middle between Ward and Joy relating to Harold, because like Joy just has, and I will say that Joy interacting with Harold is probably the best we get of Joy. But Joy having just gotten her father back, whereas Ward, who has just been living under this hellish regime of Harold Meacham, you know what I mean, for like over a decade, it's like a great contrast, with them.
Yeah, you gotta remember Ward again. This is where I'm, as much as I've enjoyed enjoy Ward's development, which I don't know. Part of me thinks it's a little too late in the season. I wish Ward was developed at least started on that path earlier in the season versus when he did.
Well, like I said, I think the whole like having him sit out for like those 3 episodes or so that didn't really do him a lot of favors. Like it made sense from a plot point of view, but he's just not in a chunk of the season.
Well, I also mean like from the beginning where he's really unlikable at the very start. I think if maybe they kind of cut some of that in half, maybe it would have played better for me. I don't know.
To tell you the truth, like by the end of the series, like when Ward is really on Danny's side, I think it works for me. I think it works for me better than it works for you, just because like I think we almost kind of like needed the super jerky kid version of Ward, just in terms of like for plot purposes, to kind of bookend it with how Ward is towards Danny, where he's putting up Danny's portrait and taking down Harold's portrait. I thought that was a great kind of ending for Ward, and I honestly think that the backstory stuff we get and how jerky he is towards Danny at the beginning of the season is sort of you're right, like in between it would have been nicer to get some more moments like with what led up to it, but I do think it's a good bookend for his character at the very end.
Remember, he was about to be the business connection to the hand once they got rid of Harold, so he was good about it. He was working for the hand in the next episode. No, I'm not. I'm on Danny's side. God. You gotta admit, that's a bit of a flip-flop there.
Right.
Anyway.
Of course, this episode also has the really intense standoff where Harold almost gets his head cut off with a sword, which, that was some nail-biting stuff right there.
And of course, we saw what happened to Nobu when he got a haircut like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Again, of course, the big call. I like the rain setting with all the fights towards the end. Of course, the Davos. I like the return of the Iron Fist, even though it doesn't really character-wise make a lot of sense. It's kind of a cool, on-mute moment of hey, the Iron Fist has come back, and it's like a divide between these two characters used to be buddies, and it's unfortunate, but they're separating ways. He doesn't want to threaten his friend with the Iron Fist, but hey, he came back. He's accepting he's the Iron Fist.
Ooh. All right, and finally we have episode 13. Dragon plays with fire. Come on, Drag. What are you doing playing with fire? Come on.
It was there.
That's dangerous. Okay. So I don't know. I'm pretty mixed on this one, to tell you the truth, Dragon.
Really?
Yeah, I'm kind of mixed on it. Well, like I said, I just think the problem with Harold being the big bad is he's just almost kind of he's too charming. You know what I mean? He does too good of a job of being the guy who I don't know. Is the whole final standoff with Harold just. I feel like the last fight scene with Bakudu felt more like a final fight scene in a season than the final standoff with Harold did. Did that make sense?
Yes, what you're saying, yes, but I disagree with it. I will say this. I think, no, I see your point, yes. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, just knowing the Iron Fist backstories, again, not extensively, just kind of knowing the gist of it. Going into the season, I was waiting for this face-off between these two characters, Harold and Iron Fist. And here's the thing, I'll admit there is a problem with it. The problem is that Harold just unnecessarily turns on Danny at this point. Hey, I'm about to get coming back now.
Yeah, that also bothers me too. Yeah.
That's a problem for me with it, but I've been waiting for this face-off, and I think the way of solving it would have been, here's the big plot hole of the whole season for me. Gal tells Danny that she went to Harold, and he doesn't hear her during that interrogation for some reason.
Right.
So he should basically, episode 8 or 9, he should be aware of Harold as a bad guy, and he's not, and that's a big problem. I think if we did that, then the 13 would have more of a build. Yeah, I think that's where you're.
No, that's absolutely my problem. Is that just Harold? Of course, Harold has always had that nefarious, shady side to him.
We knew he was going to turn Danny, but it feels like
right.
He just saved Danny's life, and Joy has no issue with this for some reason.
Yeah.
We're getting there. Let's see. So. And again, the flashes aren't doing it for the reasons we've already gotten into, just kind of a distraction within the scene with Ward. There's some silliness here and there, but again, I really like the ending with that flash to the cave, the rooftop battle. Again, there's some silliness here and there, but just that ending.
I think Luke Cage has the best ending thematically, but I think this is the best ending in terms of just enticing you to want to know what happens next. All right, that was a really rocky ride. There were kind of some speed bumps along the way, but I got to admit, it does kind of pique my curiosity for the next season.
Yeah, I thought it was like a decent finale, but it could have been better. Yeah, that's right. Where I'm coming now. Again, it feels like it's for the ending of what this show is. It feels appropriate. Just I wish it was built to a little differently. That's all.
Right. Okay. Oh boy, Dragon! It's time to take some crazy pills and dive into some Mecha madness. Wipe out. Anyways.
Everyone loves some ice cream.
Why am I singing Wipe Out? Anyways.
Oh, to joy. Oh,
yes,
to joy.
Yes. Dragon, never in my life have I encountered a character with such a misleading name.
Yes, so, Ian,
I would say Joy she's by far the worst element of the show for me, I think.
And from the beginning, they're trying to play her off like Laurel from Arrow, and unfortunately, she kind of turns out like season 1 Laurel to Arrow, which is not exactly the villainous path. Just
she takes a villainous path for barely any reason at all.
Yeah. Now here's the I like one element of that too, just one. I like the fact that again, had we not again, they should have handled it a lot better. But I like the fact that at the end, it kind of lines up with that thing from the comics where, her father dies, not because of Danny, but her father dies, and it's in the comics. Like it plays a lot differently how it goes, kind of how he faces off against Harold Beach. I'm not going to bore the details right now. Let's just say the ending is that Joy goes to avenge her father. She becomes an enemy of Iron Fist. Like she hates Iron Fist initially, and that's kind of how that goes. And I like that element of it, but it does come like on a dime.
And I just think in terms of like the personality, the delivery of her, I'm sorry, like I don't have the. Hold on, let me.
So you don't have the whole one.
Jessica Stroup is what I'm looking for. The actress. I just don't think she really cuts it. Again, it's one of those things like with Ward. I think Ward is great. Like throughout. I think even when he's being a jerk, he's acted well. But here's my problem with Joy Dragon is that like she has like one default emotion throughout the whole thing. Like it's like her character goes through changes, but the delivery on her is always just like very serious, very self-assured, very stoic. You know what I mean? Just
she's not really fun. That's her problem. We don't see the humanity on Joy that much.
I think the one scene that really does nail it is all the way back in episode 2 with the M&Ms.
And even that, Tiki, I mean, writing wise, yeah, I get that, but at the same time, she's not really like over the moon about it.
No, you're right. You're right.
Here's what I like about what we do with Joy, and this is the element. It's more based on Harold. Bear in mind, of course, a lot of the good stuff is based.
Well, like I said, I think the best stuff with Joy is the whole the daughter reuniting with the father that she thought was dead. That's all good.
I mean, I like the whole daddy's girl. I really do like the daddy's girl dynamic with her and her father.
I do too. Especially the whole thing where Ward was Harold's focus, and now he's like, "Oh, I wish I would have seen what potential you had from the get-go."
And that's the interesting issue, Tiki. If we sold her as a villain if we sold her as we were trying to sell Ward at the beginning, maybe it would have.
Ironically, right? Because Ward, at the end of the day, is kind of like a good guy. It's like he's on Danny's corner, whereas Joy is more or less putting out a hit on Danny. It just
feels
so backwards.
If we switch the beginnings of those characters, it might have lined up better.
I agree.
I agree. Joy was kind of mixed on, like questioning what if he really is Danny Rand. If we just switch that around, it would have gotten a lot better.
Like I could have seen I don't know how well this fits with the comics, but I could have seen a scenario where like Ward and Danny are best friends as kids, and Joy is kind of jealous of the attention that Ward's giving Danny, and so she's kind of like has a grudge against Danny from that. You know what I mean?
That's different from the comics.
Like she's kind of like left out of the cold of the boys' club.
That's not bad. That's not a bad idea. I could go with that.
I mean, it certainly makes more sense than this, where it's like, it's like for the first couple episodes, all we hear about is how close Joy and Danny were, but we do nothing with that. We do nada with that. We do the antithesis of that.
You're right. And also we have this, the other thing with Joy is that she really doesn't ask follow-up questions.
Nope.
She really doesn't. Like, Ward says something, okay, I'm supporting him. Okay, whatever. Okay, let's basically backs him whatever he wants to the board meeting. She goes along again with Harold too. She just goes with the flow. Okay, my dad's back to life. I'm down with it. Okay, I'm not questioning it.
Pretty much.
Like, hey, here's someone who looks a little like Danny Rand. He's saying he's dead. I haven't seen him in 15 years, so he would have grown. You know what? I'm not gonna look into this. Just call security. Hey, Dad's back. I'm not crazy. She really doesn't ask follow-up questions when necessary here, and again, that's right. It seems like at the end she's out of revenge. That's why she's going to Davos for her father, which again they really don't sell it enough, but it's there. So we'll see. Okay. Ward, interestingly, in the comics, Ward was actually Harold's brother in the comic.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was looking into that. I was like, I forgot about that.
Yeah, like I said, Ward might be my favorite character besides maybe Colleen. I don't know.
Strikes me as the Squidward of the show.
Oh my god, that's perfect.
Right?
Yeah, he's the guy who it's like your heart kind of goes out to him because
he's the curmudgeonly neighbor. That's what he is. That's Ward.
Well, he just gets so much crap thrown on him throughout the whole 13 episodes. I don't know, Dragon. Like I said, I think you and I kind of differ where I sort of like idea that, it seems like he's going to be this big jerk, but then by the end of the series, he's really kind of come around. I think that works writing-wise a lot better.
I wish he was more skeptical than jerky. That's where I'm coming at. I buy skeptical more than I would jerky. I'm saying those flashbacks were cartoonily bad.
Okay, Dragon, I think you're
Danny's a bit of a problem. Danny's a bit of a problem.
I think you're hanging your hat on like one line here, though. I mean, I don't know.
I'm saying, like, even when Danny's like bringing up all the horrific stuff, like this kid locked him in a freezer, kicked him in the gonads, and like did horrible, put frogs in his food. This kid was horrible to him.
Yeah.
I'm saying, and he pulled a gun on him in like episode 1. He pulled a gun on him.
I do like the very real world thing of Ward's drug addiction. I like how that's a big part of his character. It's not something that we see explored enough of in comic book form. Of course, we've gotten some good examples of it, like it's Green Arrow, right?
Well, yes, Green Arrow. So I was thinking more Harry Osborn. Yeah, Speedy. You're thinking Speedy's drug.
I'm thinking Speedy. Yeah.
My Ward's a junkie. I knew it.
Oh God.
Very
Harry Osborn is also a fantastic example, but I like how we kind of take that whole element and apply it to Ward. Like some of it, I'll admit, is a little batshit. Like I wish we would have had a little bit more context for the random shining elevator full of blood. But
no, remember, Tiki, he was hallucinating all these other blood things. It was just a continuation of the blood thing. He was seeing blood everywhere, on his hands, on his sleeve, and that was just like the big culmination of it.
I guess so.
They were building to it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a ton to say about Ward that I haven't already said, to tell you the truth. I really like his arc. I think I'm more forgiving of him, of the kind of like nastier side of his personality than you are, I think.
Let me say this, though. So, looking at Ward, I think the interesting thing we're doing with Ward is that, he's becoming as... he was psychologically abused by his father, so there was always the sympathy there. But the actions he does, these psychotic actions, when he's killing his father and stuff, and the drug problem as well, he's becoming his father. It's in ways like he's starting to become his father when he's killing his father in a way, and that's kind of like he's divorcing himself from his father by becoming his father, and that's really messing with him. He needs a stress reliever, which leads to the heroin and the murder of his father.
Of course.
Yeah, and he's been tortured by his quote unquote dead abusive dad.
Yeah,
and he kills him again. He kills him twice.
It's like the Groundhog's Day of murder.
He stabbed him and he put him in a lake where he was forced to put other bodies. And he's a really screwed up relationship with his father. And then, of course, later on, in the end, he shoots him and then he cremates him. So that's kind of another death if you want to count it.
Right.
Yeah, it's by the end of the show I like Ward. So I really like I love that painting thing, but not the paint. I like the portrait thing that you talked about. I do like it's kind of a where we leave Ward. So
yeah, I think that was very satisfying. Okay, let's get to Big Bad Harold.
Oh, good old Harold Meacham. Oh, this is my favorite part. I think Harold was the best part of the show, honestly.
Really?
Well, I think he was.
I think he's definitely a positive element. I wouldn't go as far as to say he's better than Colleen.
Oh God, okay. I'll say it's like. I think he's. You're right. Colleen's the best. That statement. Yes, you're right. Colleen is the best part of the show in terms of basically she's the Netflixy best part of the show. But Harold's like the memorable part of the show. Is also he's really fun. He's like kind of he's sort of a combination of your Netflix adaptation of the comic book character and a comic book character at the same time. It's kind of like it's like Cottonmouth mixed with Diamondback, and you get Harold Meacham.
I could see that. Yeah. The delivery.
Just think about this.
Like he's kind of like the delivery and the fun qualities of Diamondback with the kind of like the planning and the Shakespearean type storyline with Cottonmouth.
Yeah, it was that, and along with the fact that it's the businessman that we're making more interesting. Sure. Like we're making the businessman interesting, but we're also honestly what they're doing is really clever. Is that back in the day, when you had comic book villains that were just like villains in suits, or even when you did it on TV, like Superman, all that stuff, you had to give them a gimmick, like a weird hobby, and we do that all over the place with Harold Meacham.
Right.
We do it all over the place. He's boxing, he's trapped in like a little chamber. he was doing all this weird stuff. He comes back to life. So it's basically how they're thinking of like all the stuff you do back in the extreme days of comics. Where how do we make a boring businessman kind of cool? Like what's the quirky that we give him from back in the day when we just had to make other cut.
I mean, outside of the whole fact that he's like basically a zombie, outside of that.
Exactly. How do we end that? That's what I'm saying. Like they gave him the gimmicks like that. They piled the Diamondback of it all on top of the businessman, which is kind of the cutmouth of it all.
Right, right.
And basically, if I were a very simple comparison, he's a crazier version of Norman Osborn.
Oh yeah, I could see that for sure.
It's a far with the sun issues and everything. He's a far crazier version of Norman Osborn. Again, he's crazy, but he's fun with the. I think he's another great. You're right. He's a very positive element of the show because he's got all this charisma and craziness to him.
I mean, I cannot say enough good things about the whole like the first time that he's revived in the mud, and then he's just like he just wanders aimlessly into an open fire hydrant. Just.
I gotta tell you, it's just creepy. It really is.
It is. It's creepy, but it's entertaining at the same time, especially because the woman's reaction to it is like the real world reaction you would have to something like that. You have a
son? Is he your son?
Oh God!
I have a son.
And of course, let's not forget that. Yeah, the hot dog, of course, and also Harold Meacham is an incredible ice cream connoisseur.
Yes, yes. Yes, he is. And he buys the organic brand of all the ice creams he could buy. He buys the organic blend. Now, here's the thing. So, before we get to that, real quick, again, I want to. Oh boy, it's gonna be a lot of fun there. I just want to pull off one. That's why we call this Meacham Madness, by the way. Right. But again, elements I really liked about Harold Meacham in the beginning. I love the scene at the end of the. He asked Madame Gal for a favor. He learns that Joy was attacked by the Hatchet mob. Mm-hmm. And he asked the hand for favor. And I love that he's protecting his daughter. Again, he has such an attachment to his daughter that he kills the man who just hit his daughter. Didn't do anything except, attack his daughter. He kills him.
Right.
He puts a katana in his head. I mean, that's a good it's a psychotic father, but it's kind of a nice little fatherly quality. Again, I like that enduring character trait that he really does value Joy. And again, the threat of him hurting Joy, it wasn't really there. He was getting a little riled around Joy, but he never threatened to hurt Joy.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's questionable. Like, would he have hurt Joy or wouldn't he have? I mean, that's what Ward was concerned about. Anyway, so again, we have nice fatherly elements. Again, he's kind of a warm, friendly guy, but at the same time, it's really crazy and really testy around ice cream.
Yep.
So, Tiki, you want to set up the ice cream?
No, I think you could do it better.
So essentially, when Harold comes back and he's starting to kind of be aware of his senses a little bit more, he's out of the zombie state. He's asking Kyle, "Hey Kyle, what's the first thing you do if you found you could live forever?" Kyle says, "Well, I'd eat ice cream for breakfast and for lunch." and Harold says,
"Oh, that's right. I completely forgot that they set that all up too. Oh, you're right.
Really? You forgot?
Yeah, that makes it even better. Oh God, I forgot about the whole ice cream for lunch thing. Oh God."
Harold's saying, "Wow, this really you like?"
I just thought Harold bringing the ice cream was really like just a crazy Harold Meacham thing. Anyways, go ahead.
But here's the thing, though. Again, initially Harold thought that kind of made a remark essentially implying that's such a stupid, sad idea. And later on, as a pleasant Tiki, it's the ultimate pleasant. It's weaponized pleasantries. And here's the thing: basically, what they did here is the most ridiculous version. We've had this in all the Netflix shows. I want to remind you, we've had this in all the Netflix shows. The most ridiculous version of the car door kill.
Right.
We've had essentially is your car door kill mode. You're over the top yet awesome kill. Where when I crushed Anatoly's head with my car door. Yes, you embarrassed me in front of her. It's the embarrassed me in front of her moment. Mm-hmm. We've had all sorts of those moments, and of course in you Cottonmouth's like throwing a guy off a roof. We've had all sorts of moments like that. Mm-hmm. And here it's killing a man over ice cream with the ice cream scooper. He bludgeoned a poor whimpering yes man to death. He was begging for his life, and we had the best line most ridiculous line you've ever heard. But bear in mind, here's the reason. Here's the reason. Oh, so Kyle, he's appreciative of it, and it's a really nice pleasantry. It really is. It's really nice. I appreciate it. That's what I loved about it. But God. Kyle's like, you have any vanilla? Where's the vanilla? Basically, knows he's getting all the weird of all the flavors. The basic ones, he gets all the organic. He said, I know what to buy. He's got all these, get the organic ones, and he says, you have vanilla, and Harold's gonna bother, but I'm sorry, excuse me. Vanilla, it's my favorite. And he says, okay, no vanilla. I'll just have. It basically says, I go through all this trouble, I get you ice cream, and you're asking, where's the vanilla? This is the most innocuous reason, and he was willing to eat the other ice cream.
Yeah, he was, totally.
He was willing just to dig into the other ice cream, and then basically just so offended by it, as if he were like the bad dad getting the belt off. He just goes after him, and he strikes him on the head with the scooper. It makes a horrifically gruesome scene. Like, you hear the crack of the skull and some blood going. He's crawling away pathetically. And again, back to the I'm sorry, which is pissing Harold off even more.
Right,
and he's chasing him, and we get the best line.
Okay.
Oh, just shut up and die. He continues to hit him. Then he realizes, because here's the reason he did that. He killed him so easily. This just shows you how much Harold's lost it. He killed him because he thought he was going to come back to life casually. He's talking to the dead body. He's saying, "Oh yes, I know what you're seeing right now. It's just emptiness. It's an empty void." Because again, that's what you experience before you come back to life. And he's Kyle. Oh, Kyle, what happened? He lays down beside him. It's insane.
Okay. All right, we'll try again. I do not think we're going to top that with Harold Beecham, so any other points?
Oh, let's see if there's anything. Again, it's fun, but it does not a lot of sense. He's killing people in front of Danny, which really another thing that bugs me. Danny doesn't see. The minute Harold kills someone in front of him, he says, oh, self-defense. Okay.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
The guy cuts his own finger off in front of him, and he's just not raising any questions, and yeah, it's oh boy, and the idea that that's all I got for it. Just a lot of fun.
All right, Dragon. Let's move on to the positive elements of the show, just in general. Let's talk about some good chi.
Good chi.
It glows. Anyways, I hope that's what you were talking about when you wanted the glowy outline to the letters.
I don't want to clip your wings. Let's just go.
All right. Well, so yeah, I'm just gonna start off by just saying something completely unconventional and unpopular. Is that I do think one of the more positive elements about the show is the varied fight scenes, especially with the different members of the Hand.
Yeah. I mean, something I have to keep in mind, Tiki, with that, and the fact that I think people are going to the show, like the diehard fans of the action sequences in Daredevil and the rest of the Netflix shows, which are great. They're looking for a version of that, which we got in the Colleen fight, in the cage fights. But what they're not taking into account, I think the reason people are disappointed, like they have that comment, they're disappointed in the fight scenes, is that we go differently with Iron Fist, because again, it would have just been repeating the same act for your very martial art based character. It would have been, well, we've seen it all in Daredevil already. So what they're doing is we have very memorable settings, locations, and kind of like different fights. We change up the fight every time.
Again, I use the analogy of it feels very much like a video game, but in a good way. It feels like a series of boss battles.
Yeah, I mean, again, like we go to China, we have like all sorts of he has like he's got the drunken we have various fights. Mm-hmm. And, in episode 6, we have like 3 different flavors and 3 different environments. Again, the video game thing you're talking about, absolutely. And also, again, we have men with hatchets. We have, closed in hand everywhere you turn. It's like they feel very different. Like they're all differently constructed.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's see. I guess we've already kind of touched upon all the characters that we really like. Colleen, Ward, Harold, Claire. Basically everyone except for Danny and Joy. Well,
also, I'm sorry. One last thing back to the fighting is that I like the whole he's so good at martial arts that he can like combat moves and like do this thing where he's not touching people at first. Do you like that?
Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so again, I like the running. As I said before, I like the running mask and identity device. You know, Danny Rand as name as the mask, and that kind of that idea it's seated in there. It's there. Just it could be expanded upon. Which I think will hint at the mask that he will don later, possibly.
I honestly think this might be, for as many flaws as this has, this might be the most effective Netflix show in terms of like connecting the universe together.
Yeah, I mean, we reference all of them in this season.
And in a very naturalistic way, too, with Hogarth. But, Claire's got a big meaty role. We have, of course, the hands in there. It's all woven into the plot very, very organically.
Yeah, a lot of faithfulness and nods to the comic all over the place. Again, another Defender stamp that we have, especially in this show, again, with all the other references to the other Netflix shows. Iron Fist, I'm sorry, I already went through it. Let's see. Again, it's well cast. I got to give it. I think it's well cast. Again, it's
with a couple notable exceptions.
Again, I don't know. Again, Finn Jones, I will defend, but Joy, I don't know. I'm not going to give her the. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Like I said, Dragon, she has like one tone to her voice the whole 13 episodes. If that's not a product of bad acting, I don't know what is.
I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt because she had this. I like it when she has like everything. So we see she's a virulent businesswoman, and we have that in that scene where basically she's impressing the client by saying, "Hey, that man that's dying there, his organs are going to go to your nephew." I mean, that was a scene where she had like a lot of control there. I don't know. I think there's potential. I saw potential in her with that scene. I don't know. I'd like to think that better material or like a different direction she might have been able to pull it off.
All right. I do like the adventure quality to this series, how we go to a lot of different locations, you know what I mean? And, well, I do think that does kind of, it's interesting, Dragon. I feel like there's both, like, a pro and a con to that, to where, like, the pro is that we do get all these interesting locations and whatnot, and even though we don't see Kunlun, which is a kind of a big criticism, we do go, we go to China, we go to the, we go to the different hideouts of the Hand and all that stuff.
We have the truck fight. Now we're on a truck for a whole kind of segment.
Right. The one drawback to that is that it doesn't have the same sort of identity as something like Daredevil's Hell's Kitchen or Luke Cage's Harlem has. You know what I mean?
We don't nail down a specific location. Like, the other three have a very direct location.
I would say if there is a direct location, it'd be the corporate world. You know what I mean? Which is kind of an interesting idea. Like, that is kind of a new thing with the Marvel Netflix stuff, is that we've never really explored the corporate America side of New York before, with the exception of the Kingpin, but we've never seen it from the hero's point of view.
I mean, to be fair, Chinatown is intended to be the main location, but we really, aside from Colleen's, I want to say Colleen's dojo, we really don't spend a lot of time there.
I think Colleen's dojo is kind of the equivalent to Luke's bar and Jessica Jones.
That's the thing. It's kind of hard to... That's the thing. I mean, I know they're trying... Like, if they had to pick a location, I would say pick Chinatown, but you're right. We do the corporate thing, which is kind of like in kind of the Midtown section, so it's sort of a... It's a few locations in New York, but importantly, locations we haven't spent a lot of time at. So at least they have that going for them. Let's see. All the Kunlun stuff very strong, and again, the use of the Iron Fist I thought is a cool effect how they used it.
Yeah, even though the story wasn't executed that well, I think the whole idea of like the hero who's kind of bad at being what he was destined to be, but wants to reshape what he's destined to be. I think that, like I said, it works better on paper, but I still like the idea behind it.
There's a lot of potential in what they set out to do. So again, this could have worked. It could have worked better, I should say.
Yeah.
Again, Harold's a lot of fun.
He's more fun than a barrel of monkeys.
Yep.
Like, can Harold Meachum and Diamondback have a scene together?
I'm surprised you don't want Harold Meachum and Howard Hamlin to have a scene together.
Well, okay, Harold and Diamondback is actually physically possible, okay?
Well, no, it's not, because now he's dead, Tiki. He's not coming back.
Yeah, I know, but we could do a flashback or something. I don't know. It's more possible than Howard Hamlin coming in. Anyways.
Oh God! What if you Howard? Oh my God!
No. We don't really have a ton of time for a Hamlin rant, Dragon, so keep it brief.
Real quickly, I was going to say, David, the actor who plays, Harold Meacham, the other H in HH.
Oh, yeah. So basically Hamlin's father?
Yes, the man. Yes,
I could see that. Yeah, okay. All right. He actually kind of does look a little bit Fabian-esque with the blonde hair and everything.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, moving on.
Okay, moving on to the next segment.
Card.
I'm just asking you. Yes, we don't have any more good.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're good.
I'm sorry. Okay, folks, we got through the good sheet. It's time to. I realized I wrote this down wrong, but let's go entering the cave, and it should be enter the cave. I'm sorry.
Like enter the dragon, like
right. I'm like, oh, I realized I shouldn't have added the ing in there. My bad.
Right,
enter the cave. Okay, so this is basically where we kind of
putting the show on trial here. We're like Xiao Lao, the Undying Dragon, passing judgment on the show.
Draggy, can we just address like one of the more ridiculous criticisms of the show that I don't agree with? Is the whole like the quote unquote whitewashing. I don't want to spend any long amount of time on this because it's just so ridiculous. Like, the comic book character is a white man, and it's not just a white man for the sake of being a white man. It's a white man for the sake of like he's a fish out of water. It's a whole culture clash thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, that's the point. It's like a guy who becomes more enlightened.
And B, I think the Asian American community is incredibly well represented with Colleen Wing. So it's like it's not like this show doesn't have any good Asian representation in it. So, anyways, I don't want to beat around the bush with that.
I'm in agreement with you. Yeah. That's ridiculous. But again, it's kind of outside the show technically. So it's
okay. As I already kind of went over like some of my main issues with Finn Jones and the writing on Danny Rand and everything like that. Let's address the whole like Kunlun. Just like I don't know. I keep bringing it up, Dragon. Out of all the shows, I just think this. It makes no sense for me that they didn't do a flashback episode with this.
Again, I think the closest we had flashbacks, but they weren't not a whole episode, which would have served a lot better.
Yeah, and especially because there's at least a solid like 2 or 3 episodes of this thing that could be condensed into like, it could be like spread out into other episodes to make way for that flashback. It's not like. Go ahead.
So here's the thing. So something I would applaud the show for is that I'm going somewhere with this. Is that I'd applaud the show for the fact that we have a fully formed, like we don't have to go through the origin right out the gate. Like he's coming back to New York. But what we should have done is what we did with Luke Cage, where I agree.
Yeah,
basically, because you remember the hallmark of the Netflix shows, we have really good flashback episodes.
And like I said, it's just I feel like a broken record here, but it's just like out of all the characters where we could use some solid background, especially with the with his past coming back to haunt him later on in the season.
I mean, I'm just going to assume they thought that we're going to change things up and have flashbacks, but they're going to be fragmented and they're going to be throughout the season. Which again,
that was such a bad call. That was such a bad call.
You understand the logic behind that. It was a mistake, but you understand like what they're trying to change it up a little in the last.
Yeah. Okay, as I already addressed, I think here's a big problem, Dragon. I think the show should have like picked one villain and stuck to it.
Well,
it's got a Spider-Man 3 thing going on with it.
Okay, so are you mainly referring to the fact that we have Meacham, Gao, and Bakuto?
Yes. I think Gao should have been the main villain.
Well, sure, but also bear in mind that Gao is Gao. When Gao goes away, then Bakuto enters. So at least we kind of
understand that, but that's my problem. Like, frankly, I don't know. Bakuto, I think you like Bakuto a lot more than I do. I think Bakuto is kind of just like this weird sort of halfway point of a villain for me, where it's like just his threat level. I don't necessarily think is, he's kind of like that cult leader guy. He's got a good cadence to him. He's just, I don't know. He's just not all that built up. Like with Harold, we have 13 episodes to build him up, and with Gao, we already know who Gao is.
We know Gao and Bakuto are going to be in Defenders, so with that, that's probably why we had Bakuto in there, so we can go places with, we could build the hand more. It's probably why, of course, we had an additional sides of the hand.
The thing with Bakuto is, like, I like his story. I just don't think it's really justified to make him, like, a big, like, central villain of the piece, at least for the time he's in there.
All right.
I don't know.
I think it's kind of structured that it can get away with it. That's just me.
To me, I just think I was so in love with what they were doing with Gao, and then she just kind of falls off the face of the earth.
I'll give you that, though. I'll give you that she does kind of disappear.
And she's literally in the Huel situation, Dragon. Like, everyone jokes about Huel being in the safe house with no food or no water or anything, just twiddling his leg. That's what they do with Madame Gao, and that bothers me so much.
It is interesting that no one's really defeated Madame Gao, because, again, she's really powerful. She's lived forever, and she can do that weird thing where she can, she can force people. She can essentially use the hand force.
Right.
Essentially. Okay, let's see. So, again, let's go through here. So, let's see. Again, my big plot hole with the whole... with the fact that Danny can't figure out that, hey, even though Gao might be lying, the fact that she brings up that she made a deal with, like, she went to the Rands and then she went to Harold Meacham, who was more receptive. She says Harold Meacham was more receptive than when I went to your parents.
No,
if I told that to you, wouldn't you look into that? Wouldn't you at least look into Harold?
Right.
Wouldn't you at least consider, just for the what if of it all?
It's an interesting thing with Gao, though, because Gao is a great villain when it comes to, like, playing mind games with people, but it gets to the point where it's just like those mind games just turn into stupid decisions. Like, there has to be some sort of, like, middle ground there.
Unfortunately, the mind games didn't really go anywhere, and that's unfortunate. Because they were good. They were introduced very well, but again, we didn't have enough time at the point we got that we could do anything with it. With the whole Davos of it all, when he was with the whole Bakuto side of things, when he's introduced, we cannot. I'll admit that again. We take away additional Gao stuff with Bakuto, but at the same time, I like Bakuto.
Like I said, it's like Bakuto's like hyped up to be the main villain, and then he gets out of the picture by the finale, and then we're left with Harold, who has been just kind of more of this quirky, like, nefarious guy more than he's been like a big major antagonist. And like you said, he just, he switches on Danny like a dime. There's no real logic for switching on Danny.
I'm gonna change my mind a little bit here. I'm going to agree with you that Gao should have been the main villain along with Harold.
Thank you.
I'm going to go with you on that. I'm gonna the more we're talking about, the more it's making sense. As much as I like Bakuto, he is almost his own season. He really is. He's kind of
like, I don't mind introducing Bakuto. I just think that the whole, like, the bad guy side of Bakuto, like, I think they could have paid it, like, they could have done the reveal with the hand. Right, like they could have done like the different sections of the hand and whatnot. They could have still had all that with Colleen, but just not gotten to the point where Bakuto like truly turns on Colleen. You know what I mean? He can turn against Danny, like that makes sense, but it's him turning against Colleen that was kind of like a step too far for me in terms of like, okay, now this guy's like really just evil and out for himself, and he's supposed to be the main. Yeah, anyways, you get what I'm saying.
I mean, the thing is, like, the more we're talking about, like, Gao had a lot more story to tell, and we didn't really do that with her, and that's a problem. So
they literally put Gao in a safe house and give her the Huel treatment.
So I gotta agree with you fully on that. So now we're talking about, you're right. So okay, let's see. Beyond that, the eagle motif was really weird. We already kind of went against the eagle symbolizes Danny just seeing that the path, that the portal was open to get back home, and I guess that's, again, we don't understand what that means for him, but we know, okay, that's what. Okay. We can go back. We can go away from Kunlun now because the eagle went all the way through.
Oh wow, that's brilliant.
Plus, it's shot really weird. It makes it look like he's inside the mind of the thing, which he's not. It's shot really. It's a dumb idea.
We've already been over it because the characters make a barrage of dumb decisions throughout the thing.
Yeah, let's see.
Like,
so unfortunately,
no one thinking to have like just to sit down with Danny at the beginning, that would have solved a lot of issues.
Yeah, but again, like if people just gave Danny 5 minutes of their time, the show would move so much faster.
Exactly.
They really would. Again, the Meachams are Meachams with again Harold again. The Meachams are flawed, even with Harold. As much as I love him, again, plot wise, he could tuned up a little bit. But the Meachams are flawed or unlikable. That's kind of what they're contending with. let's see. Again, most I already went to.
Like I said, I think the complaint about like there being too much corporate stuff is a little bit unfounded for me. I didn't mind the corporate stuff as much as a lot of people do.
I really don't buy the one thing I will say with the corporate stuff that bothered me. I still think it's a hard sell that they could be voted out of their own company like that.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I like that. I like that term for plot reasons, but at the same time, you're right. And the fact that they're just able to get it back right away as well. It's
yeah. I mean, that feels really hackneyed. Like we have to just we have to force that. Like okay, hey, they're out.
Plot says so.
And also, it's the fact that again they keep pointing out that hey, Danny's getting us a lot of good press for doing good things in a company. You're like, hey, we caused some people to get sick, and we turned around. We helped people. It's like it feels very. It's really very counterintuitive. That's what it feels like. Oh,
basically, it feels like every member of that boardroom is like the evil guy from that one nostalgia critic meme. The whole like we have to have money, you know.
Pretty much. Let's see. Again, Danny kind of being. Again, I like the naivete on Danny, but he doesn't learn anything. That's the important. He needs to learn, but he doesn't. As the thing goes on, he doesn't learn enough. Okay, there's a pet peeve. The DEA does not identify themselves when they come in.
Yeah, that is a pet peeve, but I'll agree. I see where you're coming from.
That's what I'm saying, because the DEA enter and then we're fighting. We think, okay, the Hand has sent armed guards against them, which of course is not the Hand style. Then we realize, wait a minute, it's the DEA, and Colleen is now facing criminal charges because again, no one identified this. So someone comes in with like it's a SWAT team coming in to kill you. You're gonna fight. You're gonna defend yourself.
Right.
No one says DEA, and it's ridiculous, and that they're facing charges for that. That is stupid.
And just in general, let's just say I think the frame up thing is a very lazy kind of. I forgot to mention this.
And again, Joy just stupidly, she just doesn't quite. Again, just very obviously, Danny's not been running a heroin operation while she's
right,
around. Very obviously, and it's hey, Danny Rand, the guy who just came back. Even to anyone, so, hey, this guy who just came back, heroin operation, all his. I think if I were to summarize like all my issues with the show, just very much it's style over substance. That's what a lot of this boils down to.
I think that sums it up.
That's kind of my middle ground for it. Was that it's style over substance. There's cool style, but there's not a lot of substance to support all that. Like we're getting the whip, we're getting the icing, but no cake. All right.
We'll just make sure it's not vanilla ice cream. Icing, I should say.
Sure.
Anyways.
Sure. Harold Meacham, people kill you with that cupcake.
Oh God.
They'll suffocate you with that cupcake.
Okay, Dragon. Again, let's try and keep up the pace. We have a few more segments to go. This is getting to be over the 2-hour mark, which I expected, but okay,
it's a big old season.
Exactly. Let's get into the Iron Fist pumping moments.
That's not bad. I like that.
Oh, okay, good. It's just the shape looks weird. I don't know. It's like, see,
I mean, the fist is good. It's the words I wish we had a lot of space. That's all. But the fist is good.
I had to put the words in between the fist though. So
I know.
Anyways, I love all the effort for what I put into these cards for what are going to be like 5 seconds of screen time. Anyways, So let's just kind of make this a bullet point, right? Like we've already kind of been over a lot of these moments, but let's just kind of like rank them down really quick. Let's see. Of course, just to highlight really quick, I love that drunken master fight. That to me might be the best scene in the whole, at least the best action scene, because for me, I just love the choreography of, the use of the jug. Right, how the jug is both like a weapon and it's almost kind of like the spinach for the guy in a way, like the Popeye spinach.
It's the symbol of the drunken master. The guy he's holding the hooch with him.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, very very referential to the Drunken Master movies. Of
Absolutely.
Course. Good.
And I love that they're both. It's like kind of the Iron Fist guard versus the hand guard. That's cool.
Right. Basically, all the hand fights are great. I think just all the hand fights really stand out. Of course, Harold Meacham and the ice cream and him coming back to life and everything, all that fun stuff.
For me, I love both hallway fights. So I gotta make reference to. If I could pick one, I'm gonna easily go with the Hatchet Men fight in the hallway. Where basically, I think that is such a cool fight. And that's not a hand fight. That's just it's like the Hatchet Men. Like they're a different organization. They're afraid of the hand. Basically, again, that's the one scene that's good with George. George just, she's the hostage. That's all she is in the scene. So she's in the elevator, and they're trying to kidnap her. Danny's running the hallway, and again, he's like, they're throwing freaking hatchets at him, and he's catching them, and he's breaking they're about to cut off his hand, which he then uses the iron fist on and breaks the hatchet. They're fighting in the elevator as it's going down. That is a cool scene. If I had to boil down one action scene for me, I'd pick that one.
Okay. I just like the Drunken Master stuff just because of the choreography of it. Like, I agree, like, for the most part, I can see where people are coming from, where it's not the most diverse choreography in the world, except for the Drunken Master fight. That's where the choreography really gets fired in all cylinders. Anyways.
Speaking of choreography, again, the other hallway scene, again, I like him for also the same reason, too, here, where I like it's like a condensed space. Like, in the other scene, like a hallway fight was like a long hallway, we have a lot of stuff going on, but I love that. With Iron Fist versus Defenders, it's gonna be like the compendium of hallway fights. It's gonna be like the monolithic hallway fight. Like all four of our characters fight in the hallway.
Oh yeah.
But in Iron Fist, I like the difference here where we have, especially in the Davos Danny versus the Hand fight in the Hand compound, it's the most narrow hallway ever, and it's like all these like there's Hand. Every direction, like they squeeze up against each other. We have that also with the hatchet men fights. I love how small the space gets during those fights. I think that's like a new way of spicing up the hallway fight. Jessica Jones is down a stairway. Here it's like it's condensed, and Luke Cage is bulletproof and all Christmas. All sorts of cool stuff. All right.
Okay, let's see. I don't know.
Well, the floor punch is cool. At the end, in the last episode, he punches the floor with the Iron Fist, and everything goes up.
I like all the stuff with Ward being a sad sack throughout the, like Ward just kind of like taking all this abuse and just, like you really get to be on his side at a certain point.
I loved Danny's return speech, and I told you about this. I really love I love this. With this, I'm going to mention too. I love I like the theme of Iron Fist. It's not memorable, but I just like when I hear it. And even it's really cool. Like this is like the scene where again Danny in the corporate setting really works for me. Like Danny's publicly come back and say, "I'm gonna do right by my family," and and with that music playing under. I don't know. I think it's a really nice like, "Hey, welcome, Danny Rand." This is where the name, like all the name references, finally pay off for me. Danny Rand as a name actually means something here, and that's kind of nice.
Right.
Let's see. I love the visual tease at the Hand where basically he's Harold Meacham sees after he's stepped out of the penthouse. There's like a paint like a handprint on the outside of his penthouse with "Where did you go?" written on it. That's a cool tease of the Hand. We get that before we see Yao. It's a really cool little tease. The Hand's mad at Harold Meacham.
I love the let's see, what's the name of the karaoke guy again?
That's Scythe.
Scythe. Okay, I really like that. That's another one of my favorite scenes, just for the twisted nature of it. Where he's singing the karaoke, singing "Take on Me," classic '80s tune. Of course, it was used to great effect in both The Leftovers and La La Land, two of my favorite things of the last year. So I don't know, this song kind of keeps following me around. I just love the like I said, the contrast between like that poppy song and then the murder that's taking place. That's a good kind of memorable image. You're
right. It was a cool opening. Well, it was kind of like I forget if it was like that happened, then we got like the opening. Like they had like a recruitment montage, and that was the ending of it. It was really cool. I love the tease with Xiao Lao the Undying, because again, I was waiting to see, are we going to see that dragon? Are we going to have the budget? Because I remember back in the Netflix speculation days, I was saying, here's how we get away with the dragon.
Right.
Ever since Iron Fist, I've been waiting for this thing, saying, how are we going to pull off this sequence? I was just so happy with the tease of it all, with the red eyes and like the fire around. It was like cool.
It was good.
Let's see. Briefly, I
think the show has three really good scenes involving food. Actually, four if you want to count Harold and the hot dogs. You have Harold and the hot dogs. You have Harold and the ice cream. Then you have the Chinese takeout. And then you have, oh God.
Those are the three tickets. What are you thinking for the last one?
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to, you have Davos and Claire with the,
with the pizza.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. I love it when he heals Colleen. He heals Colleen. I love the fact that the fist can also heal. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it could do that, honestly. I completely forgot it.
Cool moment with the bullet being absorbed into the fist.
Yeah. It's, I mean, he healed. It looked to me like he healed himself when he pulled at the end there. Too. Okay, I think I got two quick things here. Is this? It's something I've been seeing in Samurai Jack for so many episodes, and I finally got to see it in live action. I'm sure if you look somewhere, you could probably find this. But I was the first time I saw this in live action, I was wowed by it. When Colleen is running towards the Chinese guard with the poison sword. I love it when it's like kind of that samurai thing where you run with the sword behind you, or like you're ready to draw the sword like a gun, and it's like she's running at full speed at each other. I've never seen that live action. I'm so titillated by it. Like, yes, hooray!
Sure.
Finally, it's wow, that's what that looks like in live action. Wow, it's cool. And lastly, something got me really excited because again, the question if we're gonna have like a Luke Cage tease, and we kind of did. It wasn't as cool as the one in Luke Cage, but we saw the 1940s Iron Fist footage.
Yeah, that was cool.
Which showed
that was cool.
Iron Fist in the head-to-toe costume, which is cool.
Okay, now let's get to the title card that I spent the most time on, Dragon. Let's get to Huzzah! Fingerprints of the Hand.
Not bad.
And those are real fingerprints.
I like the print. That's the thing I like most of it. I like the prints of it all. It's really nice.
Right, you can still see the remnants of the red on my finger. Anyways.
Here I thought you were beating dead guys with that hammer like Harold Meacham did. Because they also wanted ice cream and they wanted vanilla. No.
In case you're wondering why my middle finger and my thumb are red, that's why.
You killed a man over ice cream.
You know it. That's it. That's just how I roll, man.
Oh, but seriously, that was one thing Meacham Madison completely forgot about. By the way, when he clawed those guys, and like he greets his son, he greets Warden Meacham, like, "Oh, hi, son," as he's clawing them, he's beating his men to make sure the men can't be identified. He's beating their face. I think that's the movie. Right. Honestly, I'm not kidding. I think that's the most gruesome thing we've seen in Netflix. I really do. Like beating the faces in with the hammer on camera.
It could be.
Okay, anyways, yes, so hand. So that's basically what we're going to do here, folks. We're going to go through the hand and kind of talk about what I call the factions. I call them the fingers of the hand, hence the fingerprints.
Yeah, you kind of lead the way on this.
So essentially, folks, the hand's going to be a big part of Defenders, and of course the hand factors in here, and also we've been building the hand for a while now, and it seems to me that we have a bunch of, with Bakudo stuff, essentially, we also see like there are factions of the hand, like different sections of the hand, different operations of the hand that are building to Defenders, I figure. So we're going to go through like our characters at the hand here. So let's start with Madame Gao.
Yeah. I don't know.
well, Madame Gao, we know, runs the heroin and the drug operation. Which
we do get a lot of good reveals about her, as you said. Just the fact that she's from the 17th century. She's immortal. Like I said, I love the nefarious nature of her, kind of like working within the shadows of Rand Enterprises for decades. I really like that.
Again, I tell you, on the initial watch, I was a little. Again, it won me over as it went on, especially on the rewatch. But I was kind of Gal, based on Daredevil, based on the love with Daredevil season 1. They were two factions. I didn't know that. Again, Nobu and Gal apparently were on the same side, but they might not have even known at the time because it's Chinese and Japanese. I didn't know the hand went kind of multicultural like that. I thought it was all Japanese. Traditionally, the hand's all Japanese. Traditionally, so what I'm pretty sure what they're saying with Iron Fist is that Madame Gao, because Bakudo doesn't like Madame Gao, the fact that she's spun off of the hand, but she has very loose connections to the hand, which I guess is like they facilitated a deal with Wilson Fisk and Daryl. That's why they were working together. But the idea is she's kind of frowned upon in the hand community. She sells the drugs, but the drugs, she runs the money of the hand. That's kind of what she does. She facilitates the money and the transactions because she sells the product.
Mm-hmm.
So she's the money man of the hand with the drugs. That's essentially what her role is. So
for sure.
Briefly, just covered. We had Nobu. Nobu and Daredevil, of course, and Nobu no longer is around, but at the same time, Nobu represents a lot of stuff that's going to pay off in Defenders. I thought it was pertinent to bring him up briefly. Is that?
Just guide the way on this, because I don't really have a day. It's been a while since I've seen Daredevil season 2.
So Nobu, essentially, if I'm nailing down here, he represents the traditional hand, like the mysticism of the hand, where he's working on the special projects for the hand. They're very classic comic. He's the classic comics hand. That's what Nobu is. The red.
I can see that.
Head to toe red ninjas. He
is kind of like the very classic, like Mortal Kombat-esque ninja. You know what I mean? Like the very kind of like, I don't want to say stereotypical, very like archetypical.
Okay. So let me rock you with the big theory for Defenders that Nobu is very important. So very simply, Nobu has two jobs with this mystical side of the hand. Two jobs, and we've seen this in the Netflix series. He's digging that giant hole in the ground that we saw in Daredevil season 2. Remember that giant hole in the ground?
Tucker! There's
Yes.
a giant hole in the ground, Tucker!
All right. The giant hole in the ground, and he was about procuring Black Sky. Daredevil season 1, he was trying to ship Black Sky using Wilson Fisk's connections, but Stick killed the first Black Sky. Season 2 found Elektra. They now have Black Sky.
Right.
Got Black Sky. They got the hole. They're digging to find something in the hole based on this comic story that it seems they're aligning the stars for here. Is that they're digging for an ancient being called the Beast.
Okay.
So basically, it's based on the story called Shadowland, where essentially what we know Nobu did in the first season, he bought and secured land that they're digging that hole in. And basically, they're digging that hole to basically take over New York in sections. They bought that section of property that Kingpin got for them, that section of property. They're digging the hole to find this beast. And what I believe they're going to do is the beast is like an ancient spirit, like an ancient powerful spirit. So kind of the hand's god. They're going to channel that god into the unkilled, like the ultimate killer, which is Black Sky, as in Elektra. They're going to take an ancient being and they're going to have it possess Elektra, which will be the end of civilization as we know it.
I don't know. That seems a little bit too mystical for me. Like, if they shied away from the mystical elements of Iron Fist, I don't know if they'd go that out there with it.
Well, all I'm saying, that's the theory. At the very least, that's what the digging suggests based on that. So it's all based on that sort of.
I mean, I guess, yeah, we do have to have some sort of explanation for that hole. You're right. So
all I'm saying is, in the Shadowland, they dig the hole and they found the spirit that they possess people with. I'm saying that's consistent with the pieces that we got. So whether that happens or I'm just saying that's most likely. That's the theory.
All right, we'll see.
Okay, let's see. So Bakuto, take us through some Bakuto here. So Bakuto's kind of the Colton recruitment.
Yeah, and honestly, Dragon, I think you're right in terms of like one of the criticisms with this guy is like you do get the fact that like yeah, he is kind of like a more noble version of the hand than Gao is, but I wish the lines in the sand were drawn a little clearer with this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll tell you what I really liked about Bakuto on the rewatch. It kind of occurred to me, I didn't think before, is that Bakuto, he's how the hand recruited the young warriors that we saw, the young ninjas that we saw in Daredevil. Remember, like, Elektra kills the young hand ninja.
Yeah.
And that's why they're young, because Colleen recruited those guys, and he turned them into hand ninjas.
Right, and I do really like that whole kind of like, shady, like, cult, like, okay, we're giving these kids a life, we're giving these kids a purpose, we're giving these kids a way off the street, and we're also turning them into assassins. So tomato, an eye for an eye.
Yeah, I thought it was like kind of a cool fixture, like kind of glue between the shows there, that kind of idea. That was kind of neat. And the idea is like he represents kind of the cell line of the hand of like, hey, we're going to better the world. We're going to take over the world and we're going to better it with our ways. He's trying to legitimize the hand, and possibly the fact, he's keeping tabs. There's a surveillance system. He tracks cell phones. He tracks everyone. He also financially, like Gao makes the money. He facilitates the money. It's kind of how it also.
Right.
Regardless, I think he's also working on how to legitimize the hand. So when the hand starts to take over, this is the guy who's going to say, "Hey, folks, don't run and be afraid. Join the hand."
Sure, I can see that. Yeah,
that's what I think Bakuto's role is intended to be. And again, he'll be in Defenders, so we're going to see how all that kind of jives. Speaking of Defenders, last thing let's mention a few of the assassins we really like. Let's give them a few shout-outs here. Scythe, we've already talked about.
I feel like we've already talked about most of them, like the Drunken Master's wonderful.
Yeah, Chen. We have the Russians, Andrei and Grigory Velnikov. The two guys, the two Russian butchers who, they cut their hands. Like whoever beats me outside the ring, they're kind of
right. Oh yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And of course, the most impressive visually in the directing is the Bride of Nine Spiders.
She was great.
So, we have some bunch of cool hand warriors, and again, speaking of just all Defenders of this all, let's talk briefly on Alexander. Do you have any speculation about Alexander going into Defenders you'd like to get out here so we can get
I have no idea, Dragon. I've kind of, to tell you the truth, you kind of know this. I've sort of been avoiding the trailers. All I've seen is like the Comic-Con trailer. So yeah, really, I'm going in pretty damn blind. The only speculation I have is that she's going to be like kind of related to the organization that's taking care of oh god, not the hand, but the
IGH.
Yeah, that one. That's my main speculation with her.
Again, honestly, for me, it's I'm pretty much in the same, but I'm saying it's either or. It's either she's the big leader of the hand, or she's most likely, again, leader of IGH, or is a company that is just working with the hand. Basically, she's filling in for Wilson.
I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense for her to be the leader of IGH because, like I said, it's like, we already have Diamondback in there. We have, oh God, Simpson,
well, again,
his comic name is Nuke, right?
Yes, I mean, to be fair, we only know 100% Nuke and Jessica Jones are IGH. The other ones we're speculating are IGH, but those two are IGH.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I do very much think that with Diamondback, it's a pretty, you're right, it's not confirmed, but I mean, it's pretty logical to assume that it'd be connected.
Yeah.
Anyway,
either I feel like if she's not like the big leader of the hand, she's going to be like kind of the larger scale, if you can even believe that, the larger scale version of the Kingpin, where she's the one who's going to she works in the sky.
I can see that. I can see that more than I can see the leader of the hand thing.
Basically, she has the infrastructure, most likely through IGH, that the hand needs to take over New York, and that might be her.
Right.
So either that or she's the big leader. So we'll see. That's kind of the theory we got on hers. That's essentially kind of all the fingerprints. Those are the factions, the fingers, if you will, of the hand.
Okay, Dragon, and let's get to our penultimate segment. Thank God. Let's go on the path to Kunlun. And now, Dragon, this is like kind of like all the connective tissue with the rest of the Netflix stuff, right?
Yeah, so it's like all the references, like any references to Defenders and stuff.
Okay, well, we've already kind of breached a lot of this stuff over, so let's just kind of...
Well, and also comic references, too. Like, I'll just fire a few off real quick.
Okay, so obviously Claire Temple's the main one connecting it all. Let's see.
Lei Kung the Thunder, the master of Iron Fist. We see him, and he's in the green and yellow. Of course, the green and yellow is seen all over the place. The bowl, every which way. We have the monks. The Order of the Crane Mother. The monks that's kind of the name of the monks that find Danny.
Mm-hmm.
The Snowy Mountain origin is, again, it's pretty accurate. The only difference is Harold was there; he more directly killed the Rands.
Right.
There is a difference. I'm just saying we kept faithful to him. He's found by monks. We didn't change that up at all. He's plane crash is found by monks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. The Daughter of the Dragon. That is Colleen's nickname, and that is actually a reference to something we're definitely getting in Iron Fist season 2. You see, Daughter of the Dragon was the nickname for not only Colleen but Colleen and Misty Knight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I remember Colleen and Misty Knight are really good friends in the comics, and they essentially become, they go into business as PIs together. Like she's the muscle, she's the PI. It's kind of as PIs, and with it's called Nightwing Restorations Incorporated, and eventually that gets lumped into Heroes for Hire. So that's kind of what their path is kind of, at least in the comics, set out to be. So those two are good buddies. And Misty's been confirmed for season 2, and also Misty in the comics' relationship with Danny Rand. So I don't doubt we're going there. Or
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have much to say about this comic stuff because it's all very foreign to me. But
sure. So Claire, she's getting letters from Luke Cage.
Yeah, she's getting the letters from Luke Cage, right? Of course, it continues directly on from Luke Cage, where at the end of Luke Cage, she was gonna, take some self-defense classes. So it's a very natural transition for her.
She is in her mother's apartment, which implies that we're in Harlem for a portion of this, by the way.
Right. Yeah. Right. Obviously, kind of by the end of this, she's going to be like more primed and ready than ever to really, she can almost stand toe to toe with some of the Defenders in the same way that Hawkeye or Black Widow would with Avengers.
So, speaking of that briefly, I don't want to go too long on this, but just real quick.
Yeah, please don't.
Based on the fact she has those claws, there's a chance. We've made reference to a character in Jessica Jones called Angela Del Toro. Angela Del Toro becomes a character called White Tiger, but at the same time, it's an out there theory. But Claire could become this character as well.
Well, you're right. That is an out there theory.
Look, I'm just addressing. I'm not saying it's likely, but the fact that if she grabs claws of all weapons, she's known for wearing white. She bears some similarities to the Angel Del Toro interpretation, and the fact, lastly, and this is the main reason I bring it up. White Tiger's been a multitude of characters, so it wouldn't be completely out of the realm.
Right.
The possibility that, you know, she could be a White Tiger. Basically, what if she's like the two of them meet each other, and the main takeaway is that what if White Tiger got a Netflix show, and Claire would be included in that, and we build that through the Defenders, whatever we do with her in Defenders. Like if she became inclined to become a vigilante or work with a vigilante very directly like that, she could become a White Tiger. So it's a theory. It's not at any point substantiated. I'm saying it's out. It's on there.
All right.
So, yeah. Okay. So yeah, we had a Hulk reference. You know, that incredible green guy on YouTube.
We still can't call him the Hulk. I mean, I guess that's a universal thing, right? Maybe.
I really don't know with the rights thing. I don't. I mean, they said we have a Hulk, so they can get away with saying Hulk.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing where it's like, you know, especially in the Netflix stuff, it's just like we've consistently heard the green guy.
I don't know. Maybe it's just they don't want to. I don't know how. Again, I don't want to get into the whole thing. It's unclear how widely known the name Hulk is among the community, because it's quite possible people just know him as the Green. Only one interview.
You know, that's a good point. That's a good point.
He's only been called the Hulk once in the MCU. On the news. On the news, he was called the Hulk once.
Mm-hmm.
So it's unclear. Let's see. We have the iPod, which kind of hints at it's kind of is somewhat reminiscent of the Walkman that Star-Lord has, or now the Zune.
The Zune.
Definitely the Zune. Claire is saying "Sweet Christmas" now.
Of course.
Let's see. We brought Harold back using the same way we brought Nobu back and Elektra back. They brought him back using the same method, the blood chamber.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. Let's see. Dr. Paul Edmonds, he was the psychiatrist. He's from the comics. The 1940s Iron Fist footage, of course, classic costume. If some people speculate that's Orson Randall, one of the original Iron Fist, so there's that. I love the Daredevil reference that Ward has. You know, that god dang Daredevil. Yeah, but you know, I just love he's jumping off rooftops like god dang Daredevil.
I've actually got one dragon.
Yeah,
believe it or not. We have Themby Wallace from Luke Cage.
Yes, Themby Wallace. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, of course, Hogarth. I mean, we've already been over her, but she's a big fixture.
That's true, and we also have another Jessica Jones reference, which I really appreciate on the rewatch, especially. It was there in the beginning, but the second watch, it's like knowing it's coming. It's really cool. Jessica Jones was cited, not by name, but she was directly cited as the blackmailer. Oh, sorry, not the blackmailer. She was Joy's blackmail, like all the photographs and stuff that she got on the corporate guys.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Nice. That makes a lot of sense.
He has a really cool line, and the idea is like Jessica Jones before the whole Purple Man arc, before all the stuff she went through in her show back when she was the PI. When she said, "Says what? Yeah, I had a PI tracking to get dirt on him. Mm-hmm. She's good. Oh yeah, when she's sober, she's good. So that's directly Jessica Jones when she's sober.
Yeah,
that's
You're right. It's
cool. Of course, the hand is referenced. You know, Madame Gal. She referenced
Derek. It's not just a reference. The hand is like a huge part of it. Yeah.
Well, no, I meant Gal. She referenced especially the Devil of Hell's Kitchen, the bulletproof man from Harlem, and and Iron Fist. So yeah, Stanley's poster, of course.
Yes,
it was a poster.
I love how his cameos are all posters.
It was a recruitment poster.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, we had stickers of old Marvel monsters, which is kind of cool, like Orko and Mangala.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
It's trying to think if there's anything important. Bullet hole, shirt with a bullet hole in it, Luke Cage's.
Mm-hmm. I've got one last thematic one that I'll save till the end, unless you have anything else.
Okay, let me see if I got anything else. I think I'm just about at the end here. Karen Page. Karen Page helped Danny with the expose about the cancer cause thing.
Right.
Because he says, my friend Karen, also Ellison was mentioned as well briefly, but Karen Page was the one. The idea is that we had a scene we didn't see here where Danny reached out directly to Karen Page to publish the story, which is kind of cool. Karen helped.
Right.
Actually helped her when he was doing good business, altruistic stuff. Good for Karen.
Okay.
Even when she's not there. I already mentioned the Man with the Iron Fist director, and that's it. Okay, what you got?
My thematic thing is, like, I really love how each season of these Netflix shows, we have this reoccurring thing where you can never trust, like, there's always an element of, like, we don't know who, what are the background characters, like in Daredevil, we don't know who's on Fisk's payroll. In Jessica Jones, we don't know, who's under Kilgrave's command. Right. And with Luke Cage, it's a little bit, it's a little less than the the Kingpin thing, but it's still, we have everyone on on the payroll of the Mariah Dillard and Cottonmouth. We have that whole thing. And then in Luke, right, sure. And then in Luke Cage, of course, we have, I'm sorry, not in Iron Fist, of course, we have, anyone and everyone could be a member of the Hand. Sure. So I really like that whole element of it. I like how these Defender shows are kind of like, it's building up like the seedy underbellies of New York in a lot of different ways. All right.
Yeah.
That's about all I got.
Nice. That was a good one.
All right. Oh, thank God, Trican. Thank God we're at the end.
That was seriously. I'm very impressed. It was a really good one.
Okay. I brought that whole idea up before in Luke Cage, but
I know. I'm just saying. I think you tie it all really nicely together with the Iron Fist dolls. We can have all 4 points in there. It was really nice.
All right. So
Tiki gets the thumbs up.
Let's find our center. Is it the big thumbs up from Poppy?
It's the big thumbs up from the top.
All right, so let's find our center and give our final thoughts on this damn thing. Thank God, finally. I gotta say, Dragon, credit where credit's due. This isn't gonna be 3 hours. So that's all I wanted, is for this to not be 3 hours.
Again, it's like what we did Bates Motel. It's gonna go for a while because again, it's a whole season.
All right, what do you got?
One shot.
What do you got for final thoughts?
All right, for me, I mean, if I were to boil down,
let's do final thoughts really quick. Let's do final thoughts on Iron Fist, and then let's break down our very quick ranking of the Netflix shows. As the last thing we do.
Okay, I got you. All right, so if I were to boil Iron Fist down, Iron Fist is Arrow's season 3, and for those who do not watch it, very simply, it's style over substance with good intentions. And potential. So that's the thing. We start off in good places, but there's definitely potential here, and you can see what they're going for. But again, like it's that Luke Cage mixture I spoke of before, where it's that Luke Cage is thoughtful character development, and it's kind of the comic book, the reverence of the comics, all the spectacle of the comics, and the thoughtful character development. This has the spectacle of the comics, but not exactly the thoughtful character development. So it's half that mixture. Again, that's good stuff, but it's not as effective as the other stuff we've gotten because it's not that other half of the mixture.
Right.
I hope Defenders will go a long way with Danny's character and developing, maybe fixing in kind of in fixing the flaws in his character, and kind of like, again, hopefully it's kind of, I hope it's doing kind of the not that Captain America was a problem or anything, but kind of what we did with Captain America got more development in Avengers, and that development was then further in the next thing that he did. Kind of what we did with a lot of the Avengers. We kind of had the Avengers as kind of a good jettison, a good starting point for their arcs, which we then developed even further in the next phase of the film. So I'm kind of hoping we do that with Iron Fist, and I think Misty Knight in there might help a little, because then she's kind of like another Claire kind of to help things out.
And Misty Knight is, of course, a major connective tissue to the Iron Fist storyline.
So there's a bottom line, it's flawed but enjoyable, especially with fast forward. You can fast forward through the parts you don't like. It's really
okay. Yeah, Dragon. I mean, look. This is a solid, it's a solid C+. I don't know. I know that's not a glowing recommendation, but it's certainly not the F that the 17% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's a ridiculous score.
I'm with you there, too. I think that's a perfect way of putting it. It's a C+. I'd go for that.
Like you said, ironically enough, much like it's kind of like the Tomorrowland thing. Like with Tomorrowland, the best parts of the movie Tomorrowland are not in Tomorrowland. And with Iron Fist, the best parts of Iron Fist are not Danny Rand. It's like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of good stuff around the title character, but unfortunately the title character himself kind of falls flat for me. I see what they were doing with him, but the writing and the acting isn't all that. This does feel more like a standard ABC. This feels more along the quality of a good season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
It's not quite up to the caliber of the rest of the Netflix stuff, but it's pretty passable. And if this was on just ABC or something, I'd say this was really good.
Feels almost like a rush to the finish line for Defenders in a way.
Sure. But yeah, like I said, it's I do think the one big sticking point with the criticism I have is I think the action is just fine. I know a lot of people have complained about the action, but I think it works about as well as it could. I mean, could there be at least one like balls to the walls like hallway fight? Yes, but like I said, not all the fights have to be hallway fights, Dragon. I think you've made a really good point about them differentiating the action. They didn't want to just repeat themselves here.
I mean, would more kind of really close combat like kind of the cage stuff been better? Sure, but I'm with you too. I have no problem with the action the way it is. I mean, I can live with it easily. I'm not saying it's inferior. It's different. That's the thing.
It definitely doesn't like make me take pause and be like, oh wait, this isn't working for me. In the same way that let's say Joy is someone like every time she's on screen, I'm like, yeah, this isn't working. But yeah, overall, I did have more fun with this than I was anticipating, Dragon. Like, I was really kind of, like, dreading watching this thing. Of course, I held off until the last minute to watch it. I literally finished the last episode about a half hour before we went on for this, so I was cutting it close. But I do that intentionally because I like to watch all the, whenever we podcast, this is just my style. Whenever we do a podcast that's a recap of something, I like to watch it right before we go on the air so it's as fresh as possible. But yeah, overall it's definitely the weakest of the Netflix stuff, but I don't think it deserves the hate and ire that it gets. And that's about all I have to say about it. All right, so really quick, folks, let's get to the the rankings. Now, Dragon and I have virtually the same list, except our number one is like it's funny, like Dragon, you and I, like, we both struggle like between number one and number two, but I think at the end of the day, you land on Daredevil season 1, I land on Luke Cage, but let's face it, they're both fantastic seasons of TV. I just think that Luke Cage gets the ball rolling on everything a little bit faster. I think Luke Cage has a bit of a better pace to it than Daredevil season 1. But they're both really excellent. And I think Daredevil season 1 and Luke Cage are kind of like really toe-to-toe, like 1 and 2, right?
Yeah. Again, Luke Cage is good. It's just it's like measuring by like how perfect it is. And again, Daredevil season 1 is perfect. It is.
Sure. Number 3 for us was a surprise how we have this ranked. Oddly enough, it is Daredevil season 2, which Daredevil season 2 was kind of like the Iron Man 2 of the Netflix stuff, right? Where Iron Man 2 is a pretty solid movie, much like Daredevil season 2 is a pretty solid season. I do think that Daredevil season 2 has straight up the best action in the Netflix stuff by a pretty wide margin. I mean, goddamn. That the Dogs of Hell fight is just incredible, and the Punisher breakout, the prison riot. Oh man, there's just some incredible action here.
Fisk again. Come on.
Punisher might not have been in as much of it as I wanted him to be, but he's still really good, and he gets serviced a lot better than Madame Gao does. You know what I mean?
But honestly, the only hesitation I'd have on Daredevil season 2 is the fact that we do a lot. We kind of work in a lot with the last 3 episodes. Like we could have taken more time with it, possibly.
Right. Okay, number 4 is Jessica Jones, and that just does speak to the quality of the Netflix stuff that Jessica Jones is number 4, because we love Jessica Jones. It's a damn good show.
Honestly, Fisk is the only reason that Jessica Jones is one. It's the fact that Jessica Jones has this Daredevil season 2 is it's great in the fact that they cram in a little too much, which it's a lot, but it's still good. It's just they crammed in a lot of it, and that's why it's number 3. Jessica Jones is great, but as a cohesive whole, and the other thing to take into consideration, we have a few problem characters that don't make the show bad, but if we're measuring it to Daredevil season 2, doesn't quite beat Daredevil season 2 because of that.
I think, to put it simply, Daredevil season 2 just has higher highs than Jessica Jones does.
Quite, but again, I can't say that. I just gotta say it's the character thing. For me, it's the character thing.
Okay. And obviously, Kilgrave is freaking fantastic. I mean, I might argue that Kilgrave might even be a better villain than Wilson Fisk.
Well, come on.
I think there's an argument to be made with that. I really do.
But come on, Fisk.
I don't know. Anyways, and of course, it's not a bad show, but I think pretty definitively Iron Fist is at the bottom of the list at number 5. So
it's definitely low on the totem pole. Yeah, not the worst thing ever. It's the most human of the Netflix shows. They basically made a cable show. Again, like you said, it's an ABC production, but it's kind of squirmed its way into.
Mm.
Bear in mind, they're all technically ABC production. I mean, like a cable ABC production.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we've reached the end of our meditation on Iron Fist, and now we must focus our chi for the next challenge, our Marvel Netflix show's face. The big crossover. The Defenders.
Remember, beware the hand.
But trust the fist!